Welcome to the heart of France for Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, round 7 of the 10-round championship, and it's the 4th of the sprint series, and the temperature is rising, the humidity is rising, and the level of competitiveness is absolutely at burning point. 32 cars coming here to play, all the manufacturers tilting for glory, 4 classes across the racing sphere from pro all the way down to bronze, and the competition in each of those classes is really starting to hot up. And for the teams, it's about consistency as well as speed. 2 races here this weekend, and it's all about getting the cars set up right for qualifying on the Saturday. We have the night race and then the final race, the second of the 1-hour races on the Sunday. The championship spread across 4 series around the planet. It's growing with every year. And here in Europe, of course, started the season at Circuit Paul Ricard. Here we are at round 7, also in France at Magny-Cours. It's the penultimate round of the sprint series. We'll head to Barcelona for the final round of the sprint series, the final 2 races in the middle of October. It's been a frenetic season and really busy. The top category is pro. So that's exactly what it does on the tin, and Team WRT always at the front, now getting very accustomed to their BMWs, and it's Charles Weerts and Dries van Tor who are leading the way. They've had great success here before, and they're high in the overall standings as well as the sprint category.
It's been a few years since we've been here. For sure, we are here with a different car, so it will be different, of course. But I think it will be a good challenge. It will be a night race where we can have some fun as well again. The Mercs, I think, will be fast, will be strong, but we're going to try our best to increase that lead.
Lucas Auer and his Winward Racing teammate Mauro Engel arrive here just 2 points off the sprint series lead. And for the Austrian racer Auer, he's loving the experience of the circuit.
It's actually for me my first race here, so we had a test. But it's a very tough track. You have especially the first sector, very high speed, and then it gets really, really technical. A lot of curb riding, which makes it fun as a driver, but also challenging. So it's, I think qualifying will be very dominant here. Need to be in the front. I think overtaking is difficult, but overall a cool track. First of all, we need to find the right setup, the right speed, and then I think it's all about not making huge mistakes and delivering on track.
In the gold class for gold and silver rank drivers, Luca Engstler is really looking forward to the race this weekend, but reverting from Lamborghini to Audi.
I mean, obviously pace-wise we've been very strong in Hockenheim. We expect not to be on the same level, to be honest, but in the end you never know. Yesterday we had a good day. In this championship everything is so competitive, so a lot of factors need to come together to be like spot on, but I think we'll be all right.
Santalot Racing's Paul Evrard and Gilles Magnus, a class winner here on the series' last visit in 2022, know that a class win or 2 in the Audi could put them on course for a potential overall European and sprint gold class double.
Well, the beginning of the season was really good. Gilles was really amazing, and it was really good for the team. But the last meeting at Hockenheim was not good, really bad. First good race, but the second race was the first race with not a podium. But the championships will be long, and I hope a good meeting in my home. Maybe a victory this weekend, and I hope a victory for the championship.
Simon Gachet and Lucas Legeret are looking to give the French team CSA Racing a top gold class result here on home ground at Magny-Cours. And the Franco-Swiss pairing have already tasted class success in their Audi at Misano early this year and hope that they can really get on top of this incredibly technical circuit.
Yeah, it's my home race. I know very well the track. I know also the Audi, so for sure it's a plus for me. The weather is nice. We are 3rd in the championship. We will fight till the end. We have the pace. We have a strong lineup with Luca. Strong team. So now we need to be on the podium each races to be champion till the end. So we will do it.
In the silver class for all silver ranked drivers, French racers César Gazot and Aurélien Panis are delighted to be racing on home ground this weekend, but know that everything must go the way of their Buisson-Ginion Mercedes.
For sure we lose a lot of points at Misano because we had like 2 technical problems during both race. So for sure we lose a lot of points, but the fight is still on, so we're gonna fight hard and see what we're gonna do. It's been a while that I didn't race here, and honestly it's quite tough. It's like you don't really have a lot of place to the mistake. It's gonna be 2 tough race. but we're gonna fight hard for sure, and it's gonna be good.
Australian racer Callan Williams and Sam Dehaan lead the way in the silver class by 29.5 points. And Team WRT will be doing its very best to make their BMW really competitive enough to give them a chance to add to their 3 class wins in the 6 races held to date.
You have to finish every race, because if you have a DNF in one race, then it's a massive amount of points that you lose. So yeah, being consistently near the top and just doing a solid job every weekend is really, really important, and that's what us and the whole team have done so far this year, and it's paying off.
The fourth of the classes is the bronze class, in which you must have at least 1 bronze class driver. The other can be ranked up to platinum in standard. Stephen Paulette was a class winner here with Simon Gachet in a Santalok Audi back in 2020. This time he'll be looking for bronze class honours, driving alongside Stéphane Denoal in the Schumacher CLRT Porsche.
We won in 2020. It's still special to win at Magny-Cours, and I hope do the same thing this year. A lot of fans will coming again, and it will be for sure a big party, a big celebration. To do the same thing, it will be so simple. It will be push like maximum, no mistake, clean race. We play in the bronze category. Last time we won the overall with Simon Gachet, a friend of me, and it's really a big memory for me.
Century Motorsports' Daniel Harper and Darren Lung arrive in France with an 11.5 point lead in the bronze class, despite missing the first of the 3 rounds held to date, thanks to their 2 class wins in their BMW last time out at Hockenheim. And he knows that consistency is likely to be the key to success here at Magny-Cours.
We've had a really good start to the season. We've had 2 wins, another podium in Misano, so we're leading the championship. Obviously there's a long way to go, still 4 more races, but we just need to keep the momentum going, keep scoring points, and that's the aim of the game.
So the cars leaving the pit lane and working their way around the 17 turns of the Magny-Cours circuit. My name is Bruce Jones. Alongside me, John Watson, ready for the first of the 2 races. It's light now, but we are going to go into the darkness.
Yes, lights will sort of go out about 20:45 or 8:45. There will be a residue of light there. You can see the view, and it's still very warm, 27.8 Celsius. Ambient track temperatures dropped considerably from the qualifying earlier in the day down to just under 30 Celsius. So it's the big change, it's not the ambient, it's the track, and that will have a bearing around this 17 corner, 4.4 kilometre Magny-Cours racetrack. And some of the drivers, just interesting, their observations and comments, particularly the opening part, 1, 2, 3, all the way through onto the back straight up to Gulp. That's high speed, and it's quite a big load on both the driver and the car. Then that inside part of the racetrack, so the inner leg, very technical, a lot of curb riding, as you heard Ludicrous Howe referring to. Then the final stint from 14 from Chateau d'Eau, just a straight run down to Lycée, and then that very tight right-left chicane onto start-finish straight. Track limits, Bruce, we know, are always going to be monitored, and there's lots of places around this racetrack where drivers have their lap times have been deleted in practice, or certainly in qualifying, because they've just run that little bit too wide. So in this 1 hour race, it's the car that gets penalised, not the driver. So if you're doing a good job and don't make any errors, but your teammates all over the place, you could find your cars maybe losing a position or more than 1 position, time penalties, whatever.
Well, I do think it's going to be a major factor in this race, but in the shade of the pit building, many people gathering to take a look at the cars. It's been a packed day of racing here at Magny-Cours, and we're really looking forward to this 1 hour race that starts at 8:15 this evening, so just 20 minutes from now. Well, let's take a look at the manufacturer points. This is globally across the 4 Fanatec GT Championships. It's Porsche leading the way, not a big lead, but it's still there ahead of Mercedes and Ferrari in 3rd place. But here we are with the grid on which we've got a Ferrari on pole position. It may be a factor, but it's about gathering the points through the season. But for now, as a Porsche fan, John, you're quite pleased to see
Sven Müller
at the front.
Sven Müller and Patrick Niederhauser, and they've managed to get their car. Porsche have been competitive in the last 2 sprint rounds. They didn't manage to find a competitive pace back at Spa 24, but here on the second row of the grid, Niederhauser and Müller, both very, very capable professional race drivers. They know they've got a competitive car. It'll all be about what can you do in the opening lap. Will there be opportunities to slip through, get onto the front, get into the lead going through? Grand Curve and then into that long, long right-hander called Estoril.
Well, with that fantastic overhead shot, we actually can see the car in third place, and the sister car is starting immediately behind in fifth. So the final few cars working to the front of the grid. What a fabulous way of checking out the liveries. But for the Aston Martin crews from Come To You Racing, 3 of their 4 cars, you know, not where they want them. They're not at the front end, but one car that is Century Motorsport. This is the car that Dan Harper qualified second. It's running in the bronze class. They're the championship leaders, and this has to be one of the very best places to be. Pole positions on the pit wall side. Outside of the front row is probably better, and that's where Dan Harper will be starting. But let's go down to Mad Panda Motorsport, because Antonio Rankin has caught up with its driver, Ezequiel Perez-Companc.
Ezequiel sat on silver pole and a really valuable opportunity to get some points.
Yeah, it was a nice quali. It was a bit messy with the red flag at the beginning, you know, leaving us just a couple of time to do the lap. In the end, I managed to do a proper lap, being second Merc fastest, so it was good as well. And now, yeah, we try to have a clean start and deliver a good result.
Why is that so important to get a good result? Obviously, your class has opened up quite a bit in the last few races. Just how important is getting a good position?
Well, to be fair, now we're going race by race. You know, we've been doing in the pro class the whole sprint, so this is the first time we do, let's say, silver in the sprint for this year. So I think it's nice to be on pole, and yeah, hopefully we can get to hear the national anthem in the podium today.
That would be brilliant. Thank you very much. Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
One of the things we need to keep an eye on is Mad Panda. They've evolved mechanisms, ways of making that driver change, wheel change, pit stop extremely competitive, beating previous best, who's normally been WRT with Audis and now with BMW. And they have, I don't know quite what they've done, but it's to do with the way in which the seat belts are detached for the driver to exit and then the second driver to get in. And they were doing times that probably no one had ever seen in an unrestricted pit stop as we have here this weekend. That is for the pros, the silvers, and gold.
Well, great to hear any little advantage. Just seeing the East Talent Racing Audi starting 4th on the grid. Christopher Haase did some fantastic laps, and Simon Reicher will benefit from that as well. So they'll be starting from 4th, the best of the Audis. But we just touched on there with Ezequiel Perez-Companc that he is the second highest qualified Mercedes. He's in 14th. Only 3 positions further ahead is Lucas Auer, who's the driver up till now had been the best overall qualifier in the sprint series, but clearly it was so compressed. Instead of 10 minutes of qualifying, we had a red flag immediately. When they were released to go on the track again, they had 8.5 minutes to qualify, and a lot of drivers got caught out. He did not expect to start the number 48 Winward Racing Mercedes down in 11th.
No, and I think everybody's quite surprised that Mercedes are so far down. I mean, Lucas Auer, we know, is the qualifier of the season to date, but he did mention this is, I think, his first visit to Magny-Cours. And again, it's a circuit which is a combination of aerodynamics and technical, and that balance, getting the car to work in the higher speed corners, but also work in the lower speed corners, both in terms of entry, exit, traction, all the things that are so vital. It's a work in progress.
Absolutely so. Well, Antonia's been very, very busy indeed, and the next interview down on the grid is with Lorenzo Patrese.
Lorenzo, it's been a difficult up and down season for you, but you had an absolutely great outing in Hockenheim.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, as you said, up and downs. We had some good moments. Sometimes we struggled, but I would say that this weekend the car is looking quite good. So let's see what we can do race 1 now.
I'm sure you'll be brilliant. Thank you very much.
So Lorenzo running in the gold class, and in fact was the second best qualifier in that class. The class pole went to Luca Engstler. We heard from him at the start of the programme in his Audi. So a look at that grid of cars, 32 cars right the way down at the back, having qualified awfully, but then with the 3-place grid penalty, Ricardo Feller, look out through the race for the number 99 Audi working its way forward. And likewise, Maximilian Goertz will be starting the number 9 Mercedes from right near the tail end. So we prepare for the national anthem, and you can see the wind, John, blowing very gustily down there.
Yes, more or less blowing directly from the western direction. And that's kind of blowing down the start-finish straight, which means the entry into Grand Curve and then into the right-hander at Estoril could be slightly wind affected. I'm sure some drivers will notice the change from when they went out and did their qualifying, 2:15 this afternoon.
Yeah, temperatures falling, wind picking up. So everybody assembled, all 32 cars, 16 rows, 4 classes, and the race will be starting in just under 15 minutes. And it really is getting to the sharp end of the championship. Every point gained, and it's 16.5 points for a win, 12 for second will count.
And as the strains of the Marseillaise fade away, we're going to have a minute's silence for Luca Persiani, who died last week, a friend of the series, a former racer and a driver coach. So our thoughts go to the friends and family of Luca Persiani, and he had many, many friends in the paddock, notably at Sky Tempesta Racing. They very much benefit from his driver coaching. 40 years, far too young to go.
Yes, also a lot of the members of the Lamborghini family, very, very close indeed. And many of these drivers have been to the front of the grid to stand in unison to honour Luca Persiani. They would be jumping into a race car, and that's not an easy thing to do. You've had a very emotional moment at the head of the grid, and then you're going to have to get into the car, pull the visor down, put all those thoughts behind you and go out and do, certainly in the case of the professional drivers, the professional driver's job. Bronze drivers and the gentleman drivers, maybe it's a slightly different approach. There you see one of the true professionals on the field, Dries van Thor. He will be starting in the 32 WRT BMW M4 GT3. So he knows what he's got to do, starting on the third row of the grid. And Dries van Thor never, ever needs a second invitation to put his car on the bit of racetrack that he wants the car to be on.
Well, it's a busy old grid, and Antonia Rankin has moved back to 5th place on the grid, and he's joined the second of the Rutronic Racing crews, and she's caught up with Dennis Marshall.
Dennis, we've got 2 bronze cars up right at the front. Are you really expecting some elbows out action?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can see that Bronze Cup is quite competitive. I mean, the cars in P2, P5 and also P7. So, yeah, elbows out, yeah.
Do you think that some of the biggest challenges will come from the fact that we've got quite a busy grid?
Yes, I mean, to be honest, we're starting quite in the front P5, so I shouldn't be too worried about the cars in front and some crashes, let's say. If we were standing in the middle of the pack, then it would be a bigger of a topic. So, like, this should be fine.
Well, really exciting to be right up at the front. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And a point that is worth pulling out. The top 21 cars in this 32-car field were covered by the first second.
It's always been a competitive field at Magny-Cours, and no different here this evening. The Century Motorsport BMW with Dan Harper behind the wheel, that is a bronze car. That's the leading bronze car, starting on the front row of the grid. Of course, you're allowed one pro driver in a bronze car, so Dan Harper is effectively no different to all the other pros around. And he proved that by just having outstanding pace to put his car onto the front row of the grid alongside the Emile Frey Racing Ferrari, which took pole position Ben Green. And if anybody was happening to watch qualifying earlier today, they may have noted Ben Green was pulled off the pit lane, the fast lane, because he actually entered it slightly quicker than he's permitted, or the regulations permit. So he got a slap on the wrist. The car was pulled to the side, and the rest of the field, the other 31 cars, were allowed to get onto the racetrack, and then that allowed Ben Green to follow those 31 cars. It cost him a little bit of time at the beginning, but did he ever make up for it with that lap to put it in pole position? Certainly did.
It was high pressure. Well, I tell you what, you talk about Ben Green. Antonio's moved like a panther. She's caught up. Let's hear from our pole starter, Ben Green.
Ben, our pole sitter today, and a really exciting opportunity to close up that gap in the Pro Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in the best place to do that, and obviously our competitors are not in the best place. So, yeah, we'll do what we can. It'll be an interesting race, especially going into the night. So, yeah, we'll see what it has for us.
Obviously, a sprint race only being 1 hour means there's no room for error. What will your strategy be today?
Send it, go for it and see. I think we just have to push as much as we can and try and build a gap to second place and see how we go.
Well, send it. Best of luck.
Right, let's just run you down the championship. Ben Green and his teammate Constable Apalainen a third in the pro class on 55.5 points, but it's the first two that really count. We mentioned Dries van Tor earlier. He's starting 6th on the grid. That's not too bad because his championship rival, just 2 points behind, Lucas Auer, is starting all the way back down in 11th. It's going to be tough and tight. There's going to be lots of place changing, John, going through the first corner, and then as they start to arc right through Estoril, more will be happening. But you certainly have to say those that got it right in qualifying have a massive advantage here.
Well, always at the start of a rolling start or a standing start, Magny-Cours, entry into Grand Cours is always a pinch point. And you have cars on the start grid, and some of them will fan out and put 2 wheels, maybe even 4 wheels off what is the demarcated track entry into the Grand Cours. And it's not unusual to see somebody getting elbowed, hip and shouldered out off the racetrack into the gravel. Everybody, it's more the mid-pack you've got to focus on. Those at the front have got a relatively clear run through, but even those at the front can sometimes be belligerent and think, well, I'm not going to move because somebody's beside me. I'm holding my ground, and sometimes the inevitable will happen.
Well, here's a little figure for you. We've had 6 races here in the sprint series over the years, in the 3 previous visits, and 5 of them have been won from pole position. The exception was won by the car that started on the outside of the front row. Will we buck that trend? We very well might, but let's wait and see.
It's a bit of an ask, but there's a lot of quick cars at the front. But again, something like the BMW, the 991 BMW with Dan Harper, he's going to be handing over to Darren Lung, who is the bronze driver in that car. But what Dan Harper will attempt to do is to give Darren Lung the best opportunity to be ahead of the other bronze runners, so that when Darren gets behind the wheel, he's got a relatively straightforward task, and that is just to do the best he can to maintain the lead of that bronze category, while others behind will be fighting to get as near to Dan Harper in this opening stint. And that's going to be a big task because there'll be a number of cars between the front row of the grid and the next best bronze runner.
Right, and if people are new to Fanatec GT sprint racing, the races are an hour long and you have to have a driver change. You can come in as early as 25 minutes into the race, and you have a 10-minute pit window, so you can come in at 25 minutes or up to 35 minutes. Get it either side of that and you're going to be penalised. But you will expect that in the bronze class runners who qualified so well, they will stay out as long as they can to minimise the time that their bronze teammate will do in the second part of the race. For the pros, though, they can pick and choose in those 10 minutes. It matters not. It's down to track position.
But again, track position is such an element at Magny-Cours because it's where you decide to make your pit stop, whether you're leading, mid-pack or the tail of the field. Because it's not where you come in, it's where you want the driver that's taken over, where he may rejoin. And what you ideally don't want to do is rejoin behind a chain of cars, which will then essentially stop your forward progress. So if you see a gap somewhere, and you know that with your pit stop time in and out, that might place your car into a bit of clear air. That will be the bonus. And that's where the guys and gals that are working behind the scenes in the garage on those laptops, computers, calculating all the information that then will be transferred to the pit lane, to the people on the pit wall, to determine we will bring our car in on this lap. So pit stop windows will start at 25 minutes into the race and close after 35 minutes. Some will come in early, others will stay out late. And in the case of the Dan Harper car, I would imagine that he'll stay out as late as possible. Also, in the case of the Rotronic Dennis Marshall, we just heard Dennis Marshall when he hands over to American Dustin Blattner. So he'll give Blattner the shorter stint, one's assuming, but it'll all depend just how the traffic is sort of amalgamating through this first half of the race.
And you can expect the car immediately behind Dennis Marshall, which is the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. Sandy Mitchell will do exactly the same before handing over to Rob Collard. So, an hour of racing just ahead of us. The lights have turned green, so we start the formation lap, and it's a chance to take a look at the grid, as well as the way the light is already falling, and doesn't look, all the headlights are on, and it's going to be properly dark by the end of this race, and a lot is going to happen between now and then. So on the front row, it's Ben Green in the Emil Frey Racing Ferrari and Dan Harper in the bronze class Century Motorsport BMW. The second row, Sven Muller, brilliant job in the Rotronic Porsche, alongside Christopher Haas for East Talent Racing, who are really dipping into the sprint series pond. Dennis Marshall starts 5th, and Dries Van Toor, championship leader, will start 6th. That's not too bad. Sandy Mitchell in the bronze class, Lamborghini starts 7th, and Luca Engstler leading the gold group will start 8th. Then comes Dylan Pereira, Trader Attempto Audi, alongside the second of the Emil Frey cars with Alto in. Then Lucas Auer, second in the championship, needs to make progress from 11. Lorenzo Petresi starts 12. Ugo de Wilde looked really promising in practice, and Ezekiel Perez-Companc, who's top of the silver class on the grid. Lucas Legere, expect a great deal from that pairing in the CSA Audi. Stephen Paulette, the Schumacher CLRT Porsche alongside. Thomas Fleming and Eliseo Dono, that could come forward, the AF Corsa number 71 Ferrari. And Benjamin Goethe, really we need to get a good result for Garage 159. William Panis for Boots and VDS, and then comes the first of the Country Racing Aston Martins in 20th position. Patrick Kujala in the second Barwell Lamborghini starts 21st. Pavroud alongside Louis Pret in the second of the McLarens from Garage 159, and series debutant Sebastian Ogard, 20-year-old Dane, starts in 24th position. Expect progress from Eddie Cheever in the Sky Tempesta Ferrari. And then we go to the next row. Maxi Goetz is sure to improve from 27. That's a car that should be at the front. Callum Williams leads his class, starting down near the back, but he's got the points in the bag. And then we go to the final row of the grid with Ricardo Feller starting 32nd. He's a driver you'd expect to have in the top 6, so look for progress from him in the number 99 Tracer Attempto Racing Audi. So it's all eyes on the screens for the drivers who are doing the second part of the race, and all eyes on the track ahead, John, as the drivers try and feel what heat they've got from the track in their tyres, in their racing Pirellis.
Yes, I mean the tyres all have come out of their tyre blanket warmers in the pit lane, and of course they do that out lap, then they sit on the grid for 15 or so minutes, temperatures and pressures fall away. Then this lap behind the safety car, the parade car, let's say, is a relatively low speed lap. That's why you're seeing cars moving around, and also a lot of drivers will use their left foot to apply brake, off the brake, on the brake, on, to build up partly brake temperature, but also to try and get that heat transfer from the brakes into the core of the tyre, into the surface of the tyre, that when these lights go out, they will have a modicum, not the full grip that the Pirelli tyre will offer up, but a modicum of grip to enable them to get through the first 2 turns, hopefully, contactless less.
Well, what we have is the cars coming down towards the final corner, 2 by 2 coming down the slope from Chateau d'Eau, but I can guarantee that when they go through Grand Courbe and sweep to Estoril, they'll be trying 3 by 3, even 4 by 4. So the 2 cars on the front row, Ben Green in the Emil Frey Racing Ferrari, and alongside him Dan Harper, Century Motorsport BMW, they are in the best seats in the house. There must be a lot of action for the others to watch, but they will be trying to make their getaway. So into the final sequence of corners, they come round onto the start-finish straight, but the lights on the gantry won't go from red to green until all 32 cars. What they did snap when we had maybe just a dozen of the cars with view of the lights, and it looks like a very good start from Dan Harper. Oh, what magical shots as the light falls here, but Ben Green got his Ferrari just across, and the car in about 6th place. That might have even been Dries Van Toor, ran a little wide, but they've all got through. This is the wonderful sweep through Estoril, and then through the kink, and all the way up the slope to the Adelaide hairpin at the top of the hill. Neat and tidy.
It looks like, I'm just crossing my fingers, but it looks like most people have managed to get through the opening turns cleanly. I'm just looking at one of the Boots and VDS Mercedes. I don't know whether the front splitter on that might have been damaged slightly. I thought I saw it wandering around. But Dries Van Toor trying to get up ahead of the Porsche up into 3rd place down at Adelaide hairpin.
Well, he gained 3 positions, 6th to 3rd, but a real challenge from the first of the 2 Rutronic cars with Sven Muller pushing very hard, but the first 2 in grid order, but then Dries Van Toor has nailed down that 3rd place. No wonder he's in the lead of the championship.
Yeah, and also coming down to this is Nürburgring, this quick chicane, right, left. He was going right, left, trying to get that temperature raised as quickly as possible into the 4 Pirelli tyres, so that when he gets on the brakes or has to make a commitment in one of these 17 turns, he knows the balance and the grip of the car will be with him.
There's plenty of gradient change. They come up through the sweepers to Imola, they get to the top of the hill and work their way down to, this is Chateau d'Eau, and it's still the Ferrari of Ben Green leading the race. And in behind, neat and tidy, but really the job was done in the first couple of corners by the first 2 cars. They preserved their front row positions. It looked like Dan Harper might be able to sweep around the outside into 1. Wasn't prepared to go for it. Again, tyres still cool. Now the heat is really coming into them. The chicanes being bounced around big time there. That's coming onto the start-finish straight at the end of the opening lap. It's Ben Green from Dan Harper, Dries Van Toor, Sven Muller, Christopher Haase, Sandy Mitchell, Luca Engstler. So the driver who lost out actually was Dennis Marshall, fell back from 5th to 8th, but really neat and tidy And the challenge there for third place.
Yeah, just looking, Sven Muller and the Porsche held a much tighter line in through Grand Curb, and look at contact, Sandy Mitchell getting rubbed, pushed slightly as Dennis Marshall and the second Rotronic Porsche manages to box in the Lamborghini. But is this an attempt at an overtake? But it's the wrong part of the racetrack for Dan Harper and still Dries van Thor. But Sven Muller in the Porsche, side by side, 3 into Adelaide, does not go.
Well, already Luca Engstler moved up a position, but then Dylan Pereira for Tracer Attempter Racing gained 2 positions up at Adelaide. And I tell you what, when you're watching one of your rivals and someone steams up the inside of the pair of you, there's not too much you can do.
Also, just keep an eye on the Mercedes 48, Lucas Auer. He has started up, he's got himself on the opening lap up into 10th position. And he again, in this opening phase, will want to make as much progress as quickly as possible. And the problem is you get caught behind 4 or 5 cars that are all potentially, you know, you could overtake if you had the pace, but you get locked. Your pace is then dictated by those that you're running with.
Well, the first 5 cars making good their escape, because the sorting out was from about 8th down to 10th position. The car in 10th is the one you just mentioned, John, the yellow and green Mamba livery of Lucas Auer's Mercedes. Only gained 1 position so far. Giacomo Alto is tucked under his tail in the second of the Emil Frey Racing Ferraris. But just bear in mind, car number 48, the drivers are in with a shout of the championship, just 2 points down on Dries van Tor and his teammate Charles Weerts. But at the moment, Dries van Tor's car is running in 3rd position, so will be stretching his points margin.
Dan Harper looks as if he's got pace, because he came out of the chicane and looked to me to be marginally closer to the tail of the lead Ferrari than maybe on the previous lap. And again, Dries van Thor following in the WRT BMW. So maybe BMW have got race pace. They certainly had qualifying pace. But of course here on the straight running down into Adelaide, whatever side you go, it's easily defended, and certainly neither of the BMWs in a position to make a challenge. But looks overall that Dan Harper has got good pace, and if he could force Green in the Ferrari, Ben Green to maybe just overdrive, overpush. But look, coming at the Nürburgring, how close he can get to the back of the Ferrari.
Yeah, Darren Lung, his teammate, was watching on. They were British GT champions last year, and he certainly watched with great interest, but doesn't expect to be in the car until right at the end of the pit window. So it's follow you, follow me, but the light is falling and it's becoming magical here at Magny-Cours, but most magical of all for Ben Green. He and his teammate Constantijn Lenen took a first win in the second of the 2 races at Hockenheim. Can he add another? But the driver on the move is Dylan Pereira, who is absolutely flying and really making good progress right on the tail of the gold class leader, and that is still Luca Engstler, who's had a really excellent start to this race, gaining places while others were fighting. He chose the moment he moved up into 6th place. But Dylan Pereira is second in the bronze class, tucked in behind him. Then Dennis Marshall, Sandy Mitchell, and Lucas Auer has gained no further places. Wait for the bright yellow Mercedes coming into the background as well. There it is, yellow and green, still in 10th place, second in the championship, but is losing ground at this point.
Yeah, I mean, basically all this line of cars, 8, maybe 9 cars, are all now running at the pace dictated by the car that's leading this chain. And that is always the frustration. There's not enough places where you can build up your momentum and make that maneuver, because you're dictated here, for example, coming through Grand Curb. There's no way you can find a way around the outside. All that you can hopefully do is have a better exit and then carry the momentum down here into the hairpin bend. But look, Harper's having to go defensive, and he has. So
that was almost like a voluntary place swap there to let another BMW, different team, but championship leading car outright in the pro class, Dries van Tor.
I would hate to think that was the case, but it did look as if Dan Harper pulled over and gave Dries van Thor the opportunity to have a go at trying to run down Ben Green.
I mean, it could well be that when we were unsighted, we weren't looking at that particular battle, that maybe he just felt Dries is putting me under excess pressure. But at the start of the lap, certainly the pace seems to be with Dan Harper. Now, this is a view from Dries van Tor's car. It was. Now we're looking at the car that's leading the race still, but pulling clear, I would suggest. Now, let's listen to some team radio from car number 78.
Flat 97 passed me fully off the track. It passed me fully off the track in the chicane.
Okay, well that was That was Sandy Mitchell, beg your pardon, driving this car. We're looking at the Barwell Lamborghini that qualified so well, saying he was being pushed off the track by Dennis Marshall. Dennis is now in 8th place, and Sandy's fallen down tonight. No doubt the drivers will be looking at that. And by the way, right at the start of the race, car number 8 went for car number 12, one of the many Aston Martins from Country Racing went for a little bit of a rotation. Laurence Lesurture, so he's running at the back of the pack. But in the middle part of the top 10, it's getting very tight indeed. And Luca Engstler in the red, white and blue Audi in the middle of that battle. There is the light flashing on his windscreen. That means he's the class leader in the number 6 Liqui Moly Team Engstler Audi, doing a great job, the young German driver. But Dylan Pereira has just moved past him. Dylan in car number 66 for Tracer Attempter Racing is the driver on the move in this race. But the driver leading and pulling clear is Emil Fry Racing's Ben Green. Maximised a very troubled qualifying session, took the pole position. But he seems to have the pace at the moment that Dries van Tor cannot match. But let's have a look at this time around, see if Dries can start to close in. I think he might actually gain a 10th or 2.
The segment times are so small between these lead cars. And now that Van Tor is ahead of the SRO Motorsport BMW, that gives him a clear shot. These are the 2 pro cars leading. So I think that there may have been an accommodation made between the 2 teams to give Dries van Tor the opportunity to seek to get the lead, and obviously then from the points in the championship and the pro division,
okay, well,
extend that advantage.
Well, entirely, but in the pro category, Dries van Tor has a point lead of only 2, and as I said, 16.5 points for a win. But in the bronze class, Dan Harper has a lead of 11.5 points. That's a tidy lead for him, and maybe it's just considered not worth taking a risk, but no risk being taken at all by Ben Green. He's just pressing on, but last lap, the gap came down very slightly. It's under a second. It's under 9/10 of a second. But the driver who's really been super impressive is Dylan Pereira, who's just making all the moves at number 66. Tracer Attempter Audi tucked in behind his 97 in 7th place. That's Dennis Marshall. And in fact, Luca Engstler has fallen behind Dennis Marshall now. So the Rutronic Porsches are going super well. That's the one in 7th place, the sister car. Sven Muller's hand is running in 4th. They are looking good, but it's a Ferrari that leads away from 2 BMWs. How far into the race are we? Well, we've still got the best part, just over 50 minutes in this 1-hour race remaining.
And it's only going to get darker, so everybody is settling down. They've probably got their tyre temperatures where they want them. Hopefully the pressures likewise. But as we know from racing in this championship, with 21 cars covered by just under a second in qualifying, and that translates into very, very similar performances in race conditions. And again, the nature of Magny-Cours, 17 corners, 4.4 kilometres, not easy. So there's a manoeuvre. That's one of the Boots and VDS coming. Oh, contact, and the Aston Martin sort of almost synchronised spins, but that clearly was a tag from the.
It was Maxi Goertz who started way down at the back of the field, unexpectedly poor qualifying session, and being tagged by number 21, which is David Pittard, trying to make up ground through the final corner onto the start-finish straight, but it took 2 to tango, and tango wasn't what they wanted to do. At the front end of the field, we're looking at the top 5 cars. Let's take a look at the race vision powered by AWS. And that is 199 kph. Sven Muller, the car running in 4th place, but it shows at that point on the circuit, which is the downhill chicane after you've left Adelaide, the hairpin at the top at Adelaide, and it's the one that's so dramatic with that fantastic rear shot we've been enjoying through the course of the race. But the fastest car through there is that one, car number 97.
Just looking at Dennis Marshall, currently running in 7th place, trying to get on terms with Dylan Pereira, who is running 2nd. Marshall's running 3rd in the bronze category, Pereira running 2nd. Of course, race leader in the bronze category is the car in 3rd place. So on board with the 96. And this is the exit out of Adelaide. This is where we're coming down now into Nürburgring. And this is where 199 kilometers per hour, quickest speed we've seen through this right-left. There it is. It's hard to believe that's 199 kilometers per hour, but believe me, if you're behind the wheel, it is.
Have faith, John, but they certainly look fantastic. Look all the better. And imagine the drivers in the second half of the race. We're just going to be seeing tail lights as they go down there, because the light is falling very rapidly indeed. But for Ben Green, his lead is coming down at the moment. It was 0.8 of a second. It's now 0.6 of a second. And then again, look at that battle as we see Audi versus Porsche fighting for 6th place. But Dylan Pereira, I think he's got the measure at the moment of Dennis Marshall, but it depends how hard they're using their tyres at this point in the session.
Saying that, Dennis Marshall has just recorded, or has recorded, the fastest lap in the race so far. Was done on lap 6, so he's done a 1:38.008, and he's now up literally as close as you can get virtually to the tail of the Audi of Dylan Pereira, and that performance then will probably be dictated by the pace of the Audi. Whether there's enough momentum with Marshall in 7th place to swoop by the 6th place, or the 5th place, 6th place Audi, we have to wait.
Well, see, but Audi's are looking increasingly tidy in this race. Christopher Haase in 5th place, Dylan Pereira in 6th, Luca Engstler in 8th, and Lorenzo Patrese just moved ahead of the Man Panda Motorsport Mercedes in his Audi to move up into 12th place overall. So at this point, as the temperatures start to drop a bit, they're looking really rather good. Just running down through the class, just to reiterate through the classes, Dan Harper is leading the bronze class in 3rd place overall. Leading the gold class is Luca Engstler in 8th position. And the silver class is Ezekiel Parith-Companc in 13th. Let's listen to the radio for Team 32.
Okay, Dries, the track limit at turn 1 is the entry. Be careful with that.
Okay, that was the message from Team WRT to Dries van 't Hoort. Track limits at turn 1. Just be careful. Dries will have clocked that.
Yes,
he'll clock as many of them as he can, but he's got a job to do. He's 7/10 of a second down on Ben Green, and he knows he doesn't have to take too many risks, but he needs those points.
Well, he needs to make a very small adjustment on the entry into Grand Prix, so he doesn't want to collect for more notifications, because that then will be a time penalty. Just further down the field, Lucas Auer, who we thought would have been a front-running competitor, got up to 10th in the opening lap and has remained in 10th place, and he's running behind Sandy Mitchell, a second and a bit behind the Lamborghini from Barwell Motorsport. Great run by Sandy Mitchell.
Yep. And let's take a look. That's the first 3, and Dan Harper's sort of coming back into it now, looking a little more interested. He just banged in the fastest 3rd sector of anyone, top 3. Yeah, so he's closed in. He's gained about 4/10 of a second over 2 laps.
Yeah, over the previous 3 laps he's picked up, yes indeed, just over a quarter of a second, and it was visually that you could see the gap between the 32 and the 991 has reduced, and that isn't in the script. But whether Dries van 't Hoort has maybe pushed a little harder once he got ahead of Harper, and maybe just hurting his tyres, and that because Harper's been preserving, because he's been running in 3rd, not running in a challenging position. So maybe Harper's going to be able to come back. I don't know.
Yeah, what we don't know. I mean, we just had this assumption that he'd started the lap so well, right on the tail of Ben Green, and then by the time we got up to the Adelaide hairpin, Dries van 't Hoort was going past. It may well have been a simple mistake down at Estoril. He lost momentum, and Dries then had to drag the whole way up the hill. But this is the view looking back from Dries van 't Hoort's 2nd place BMW for Team WRT, and you can see the Paradigm liveried Century Motorsport BMW tucked in behind as the light continues to drop up the slope they go. Curbs here are really quite an issue as well, John. Some people tackle them as though they should do it for fun, and others are a little more cautious.
Well, some of the curbs are a little bit more accommodating, others are a little bit more aggressive, and where they get aggressive is not here, coming into the penultimate corner of Village du Lucet, but it's in this right-left. You can see how much curbing has been taken, and that is such a big shock load that goes into the suspension of these cars, but it's the quickest way through, and it's ugly, it looks uncomfortable, but hey, if on the stopwatch it says it's quicker, that's what you've got to do.
Absolutely do. So right, first 3 cars covered by under a second now. It's chopping and changing, it's going forward and back. The next car in line is 2 seconds further back, and that's Sven Muller, who qualified 3rd, running 4th in the better place than 2 Rutronic Racing Porsches. He's still in the hunt here, and maybe he's just taking it a little easier than those in front. He's got a gap of 3/4 of a second over Christopher Haase in the East Talent Racing Audi, so he's not under too much pressure.
Just coming into Adelaide, just how close was Dries van 't Hoort to the rear of Ben Green in the lead Ferrari. That gap, well, as they came across start-finish line, was fractions over half a second, and as they came into Adelaide, it looked as if it was less. Just a visual eyeball on it looked as if it was probably under that half second. So again, there's a resurgence, a charge. Look how close the BMW can catch to the tail of the Ferrari coming through that middle part. It's the 180 degree. It doesn't have a corner name per se as others do, so that's the 180 degree corner.
Right, what comes next, John? It's the Imola chicane. That's what they're taking now, and then they snap to the left and know they have to immediately get to the left-hand side of the circuit to take Chateau. The first 3 cars, that's half a second maximum between them. And look how this is a fantastic graphic. This is the bronze class in the Century Motorsport BMW. That is how much faster each lap Dan Harper's been than any one of his rivals. That is why he is now going to be about 4/10 of a second off the lead of the race, and maybe in a position to take a move back into 2nd place overall. He's leading bronze class by 3 positions in the race, and I think with Darren Lung being a really, really strong bronze, they're in a great position to extend their championship lead. But he wants to take outright victory. That's what racing drivers are here for, John.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see whether the third place BMW can overtake the second place BMW, and arguably before the pit stop rounds open up, put a challenge because this car was running initially in second place, but it never seriously threatened the lead Ferrari. But now it looks as if of the three lead cars, it is the third place BMW that's maybe the quick. And now look, you can see Sven Muller's being drawn closer to the tail of the third place BMW. That's because of the pace of the lead Ferrari.
Absolutely so. Right, now what we're having is also the first of the penalties that I've noticed. Car number 93, that's Eddie Cheever's Sky Tempesta Racing Ferrari. 5-second penalty for cutting corners to be served at their pit stop. So that's going to knock them back down the order. At the moment they're in 25th. So it's not been their best race meeting so far, and it's just taken a little turn for the worse. Right, Sandy Mitchell there getting very busy, getting back onto the tail of Luca Engster. Remember, we heard the team radio, John, from Sandy saying, I was pushed off the track, and that was Dennis Marshall who did that to him. But at the moment he's trying his best to fight back, but he can't move ahead of Luca Engster there.
No, again, the Lamborghini and the Audi have got fundamentally the similar or same underpinnings. It's the same, the V10 Audi motor that powers the Audi itself and the Lamborghini. So there's little to pick and choose in terms of here. Some of the team come to you racing doing their calisthenics in preparation for the pit stop. Just interesting that the team are preparing, and what we're only just coming up to 18 or so minutes into this first stint.
You were much the same in the commentary box just before the session, John.
Yes, but there was no camera covering my calisthenic program.
Well, every little bit counts. You talked before the race about Mad Panda Motorsport using a sort of magnetic system to slightly speed up their pit stops. Now here's a driver we just haven't seen in the mix. It's Lucas Auer. He qualified in 11th. He's running almost completely on his own in 10th place. Giacomo Alto is falling away from his tail. Then Lorenzo Catrese et al. Through the order, but it's not been a dream run for any of the Mercedes. The best place is Lucas Auer's car in 10th place overall. You think the success they've had, second best Mercedes, the one we look out there in 13th, Ezequiel Perez Compact, he still continues to lead the Silver Cup. In fact, the next car in class is 5 positions further back, which is the young Ferrari racer Thomas Fleming. So Ezekiel and his Panda liveried car doing a very, very good job in class, and he's always been a perennial in the last handful of years, and great to have him.
I think the lights went out on the circuit. They had suddenly got really dark. I don't know whether the camera, the exposure on the camera went slightly off message, but it looked much darker. So anyway, here we are back at the races down at the 180-degree corner, and a challenge for Ezequiel Perez Compact right now. So he has got Lucas Legere. Well, it was over just half a second going through onto the beginning of this lap. I think Legere is getting, well, there it is. You can see the battle. Compact is running in 13th place, Legere in 14th, and that could be a battle between a silver and a gold.
Yeah, the gold class continues to be led in 8th place overall by Luca Engster. Now let's take a look. Moves down towards the back of the field. And it's been a busy race. These are the last 3 cars in the race. The Mercedes in front of that has already had a spin. That's Maxi Gertz, being spun by the number 21 Aston Martin, which is now at the back of the field. And in between them is Sean Udsworth, the racer from Singapore, in his Ferrari going, just leave me alone, guys. Just race on another bit of time.
Yeah, well, that was actually, we didn't catch it at the time, but Max Gertz did get past Sean Udsworth. So that was a positional change from 31st to 30th. So 93 have 5-second time penalty to be served at the pit stop for, again, essentially track limits.
Yeah, that's
change,
a move for the
race,
lead of the race. Ben Green has just been attacked by Dries Van Zyl. I think there might have been a body rub, but looking to maybe benefit from that is Dan Harper trying to make it 3 abreast. This is fantastic racing. And Ben Green, was he caught napping? Was it opportunity? He's not prepared to give it up. He's cut the corner there. The stewards will look at that. Dries Van Zyl going down through the Nürburgring and now down to 180. Turn, he's on the outside. He got into the lead, back into second. Dan Harper thinks he has a bit of the action. And in 4th place, Sven Muller's going, this could come to me. I'm joining this.
If I was WRT, I'd be rushing straight to the steward to say that was a pass taken by the Ferrari off the racetrack. And now you can see, he either given the place back or it was no real option. So Dries Van Zyl has got the lead. And Dan Harper up the inside. Oh, opportunistic bounce over the curb, hits the Ferrari, punches the Ferrari off the road. That'll be looked at likewise, because that was an aggressive move by Harper. Went across the inside of and there's been damage done to the Ferrari, or is it just he's just gone through the gravel and his tires have got clogged up with the dust and detritus that you get on the gravel traps. So an aggressive move from Dan Harper.
Well, it really was. He thought he had half a chance, and Chateau d'Eau became Chateau Oh My Dear, and off he went. But that was a great move. That half lap, the overtaking we had between the first 3 positions, it was so tight, so close. We had the corner cut at Nürburgring by Ben Green. That I'm sure will be looked at, but Dries van Toor's come out of it smiling, and Ben Green quite the reverse, because by the time he'd rejoined, he was down in about 12th place. But Dan Harper was very robust. He jinked one way, suddenly thought, I'll go the other. A move that's worked over the decades, John, in racing, but there was contact.
Yes, I mean, it was aggressive defence and aggressive attack from all three of the lead group, and it all ended up slightly, I would say, in tears when the second place BMW here, Dan Harper, cut across the inside coming up into Chateau d'Eau, and literally, hip and shouldered the Ferrari of Ben Green off the racetrack, and the Ferrari went into the gravel, and of course he's now running back in 10th position, having been the race leader virtually halfway around the lap that all that occurred.
Well, I tell you what, I hope the drone stays with this battle. Brilliant shots as the lights get slower. This is the climb from 180 up to the Imola chicane, and it was coming out of here between there and the next corner, which follows very closely Chateau d'Eau, where the move was made by Dan Harper as he saw Ben Green was unsettled on this bit of tarmac and then dived up the inside. But the next lap, he's right on the tail of Dries van Toor, and Sven Muller's closed in third place as well. The top six almost nose to tail.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's the race pace is being dictated by this car we're driving on, Dries van Toor, and Dan Harper just hovering around, just waiting. Now, whether he's riding shotgun for the 32 BMW or whether these two are going to go knuckle to knuckle, they've certainly had a go at it on the previous lap. But we're just within a minute or so of the pit lane opening for the pit stops after 23 and a bit minutes.
Yeah, the incident we saw a short while ago down at the penultimate corner involving Maxi Goertz, he has been given a drive-through penalty. So a meeting that thus far has been a disaster has become even more so. And by the way, Ben Green completed that lap in 10th place overall. He led onto lap 13. It was unlucky 13 for him, but for all the other drivers, including Darren Lung, who'll be taking over the car that's in second place, their moment is coming, and coming soon. A minute and a half until the pit window will open. His car is in second place.
Yes, it is, but Darren Lung is nowhere near ready to get into the car. He's doing stretch exercises with some of the team members, so you're going to see Dan Harper in the second place BMW staying out until the closing seconds of this it'll be just under 35-minute stint, by which time Darren Lung will be fully suited and booted.
Well, let's take a look at the replay of what happened up at Chateau d'Eau.
A legitimate move down the inside from the BMW, gets alongside. Now this is where Ben Green decides, I'm not going to give up my opportunity, my lead. Side by side coming down through the little curve before you get to the Nürburgring. And then the BMW technically, or in fact was ahead. You see both cars, but particularly the Ferrari, cut across the inside. And at that point, strictly speaking, I think Ben Green should have given back that position to Dries van Toor. And this is then where it all began to kick off. Now, whether he gave it up voluntarily, because we saw coming up into Imola, and then watch what happens on the exit of Imola, coming up into the entry into Chateau d'Eau, and Dan Harper makes a very move. There it goes down the inside, bumps over the curb, slams sideways into the Ferrari. Ben Green's got no option or choice, just the car. It's like a snooker ball, Bosch, but it missed the pocket.
It's the pocket now. The tail's starting to swing around a bit on Dan Harper's BMW from SRO Motorsport. He's in second place. He's leading the bronze class. Next car class is 3 positions further back. Dylan Pereira's had such a good run, but Dries van Toor is just edging away a tiny little bit, I sense, at the moment. But Dries leading the outright championship and leading the bronze championship as well is Harper. So they could go there, carry on, and hope their teammates could take them on to victory at the end of this 1-hour race. But the pit window is now open.
So in the case of the lead BMW, it's sort of up to the team to decide what's the best time to bring the 32 BMW in, hand over to Charles Weerts. So the teams are getting prepared, drivers already in the pit lane, helmet on, gloves on, just waiting for the moment when their car comes in. So the pit lane is now open. It's been open for almost a minute. We haven't had any takers other than those further on. Nicolas Bart in the Aston Martin and Paul Everard in his Audi. They have been in and are out, and likewise Max Goertz.
Yeah, but he had a drive-through penalty, so I think he's probably served that. He's going to have to come in again. He's down in 31st. There are only 32 cars in the race, and looks like he'll be 32nd after he's served his own pit stop. But when will Dries van Toor come in? We had a shot just moments ago of his teammate Charles Weerts, ready, helmeted, suited up, waiting on T-pit, and it's now. Here is the answer to the question. Dan Harper, of course, continues. We knew he'd do that. He's going to stay out as long as he can before handing over his Century BMW to Darren Lung. We saw Darren still not with his suit on.
And Sven Muller, who was running in 4th place more or less since the lights went out, he's likewise come into the pit. He'll hand over to Patrick Niederhauser. And here we see this is the pit stop, which will dictate, I believe, who or which driver team pairing will end up standing on the victor's podium. So assistance from Dries van Thor. All 4 wheels and tyres will be changed, and it'll be an interesting in-out time. The Porsche is, oh, what's that all about? Well, there was a slight confusion. Was that a release that would, the man on the flag tried to stop the Porsche going out because the Ferrari coming in had to brake. So that was a little bit of a miscommunication for Patrick Niederhauser, but he's gone. He's down the pit lane. There you see the Porsche, the yellow and blue Porsche, making its way back out onto the circuit.
Right, 2 years ago when we were last here, the first race was won by Charles Weerts and Dries van Thor. It could be the case again today, and I just want to highlight, Dries started 6th, and that number 71 Ferrari, was there any damage? Just parked diagonally. That is really, really unfortunate. And for the driver leaving in the Brutronic Porsche, he wouldn't have seen that lollipop coming back down. He'd have heard a clatter on his roof, and
hit the roof.
Thought, have I hit someone else? But Dries van Thor started 6th, got to 3rd, to 2nd, to 1st, so he needs all the accolades in the first half of the race.
And more importantly, the 32 BMW so far has had the quickest in-out time of any of the teams that have so far made a pit stop. So 39.8 seconds from the entry to the pit lane exit. So now Charles Weerts was behind the wheel there as our race leader, Dan Harper, skipping and jumping over the final 2 turns here at Magny-Cours, and looking to see who is also good. Again, a good pit stop as Patrick Niederhauser for the Rotronic Porsche. They were 0.4 of a second slower than the 32 BMW, and another good pit stop was from Come To You Racing, Matteo Drudi behind the wheel of the number 7 Aston Martin with a 40.4.
Yeah, all very close, but important for Team WRT. They ought to be in the lead of the race when the pit stop window closes, because theirs has been the fastest pit stop so far by small margins, but they were in the lead of the race before the pit stop started.
We got the Mad Panda Mercedes also in the pit, so that's a car I want to keep an eye on to see how quickly they can rotate, because they did the best pit stop, I think it was either at Nürburgring or Hockenheim, and they beat WRT. They beat the best in the pit stop race. So that's going to be just a little interest for me.
Yeah, it was
so
Hockenheim.
It's just about coming to completion of their 39 seconds. So this time, no, it was 41 seconds. So not quite as good as they achieved earlier in the season, but still a respectable pit stop, in, out, and driver change.
Wow, amazing RT shot there. Dan Harper hasn't finished with this race yet, but he will have to fairly soon when the pit window closes. But putting the Century Motorsport BMW high over the curb, it just shows your fellow Ulsterman, John, there, he's not taking any prisoners in this race.
No, and I think what's also equally impressive was that the contact with the Ferrari and the 991 BMW was a hefty impact, but there's no apparent sign of body damage on the left side of the BMW. I don't know what the Ferrari might look like, but look, the left side of the BMW, not quite straight out of the showroom, but it certainly doesn't look like it's been in a street fight.
Right, incident between car 991. Good grief, that is car 991, the Century Motorsports car that leads the race. Dan Harper, his contact with car number 14, Ben Green's Emil Fry Racing Ferrari up at Chateau d'Eau is under investigation. No surprises there.
Yes, and I think the reason it's under investigation is because he wasn't quite the race leader. He's fallen to second place. But that incident, and we're going to have a quick look at it again there, look, Harper up the inside, and there was really no room. Ben Green had committed to turning in, and Harper just couldn't slow the car down. Went to the inside, but in doing so rode the curb, which then threw the BMW off to the left. That's where the contact arose. So Emil Frey, I'm sure, will be knocking on the door of race director and pass it on to the stewards. We think that was a pass that has clearly and obviously penalised us. So why don't they get a penalty in reply?
Well, we will wait and see. Car number 30 is the car that Callan Williams shares with Sam DeHaan. They're the championship leaders in the silver class. They've sort of waited for everyone else to make their pit stop, so they had clear pit lane. Team WRT using their tactics wisely right down towards pit exit, and that will come out. It doesn't need to push too hard because their championship lead is the largest of anyone, 29.5 points. Title almost in the bag. In fact, all 4 of the titles could be settled here, but you have to say their class, the Silver Cup class, is the one that is most likely to be sorted out for the season here.
Interesting, just much further down the field, the 159 Garage 59 McLaren, now Tom Gamble behind the wheel, has on, I suspect it might have been his out lap, or first flying lap that is, he had recorded fastest first sector time. That's now altered, it's still dropped off our timing and scoring. Still fastest lap goes to the Porsche, the 97, the sister car to the one we just got on screen. That's the 96. So 1 minute 38.008 has not been challenged by anybody since lap 6.
Yeah, what we're seeing though is really hitting the ground running is the Rutronic Porsche of Patrick Niederhauser. Has he just gone past Scholviertz? Hold on, wait, no, that's the Lamborghini in front. There's the Porsche from Rutronic with the bright yellow wings on it. I think Scholviertz is being rather delayed by the Lamborghini in front of it, and it's not helping him at all, because Patrick Niederhauser for Rutronic Racing in effective second position in this race. For those that have pitted, the one that's leading the race, having pitted, is Scholviertz. There he is, the middle of those three cars. Now here comes Darren Lung moving forward to take over from Dan Harper. Dan's fun will come to an end in the next 2 and a bit minutes.
So this is basically a horsepower drag. A little bit of aero comes into play between the 32 and the 96. The BMW leading the Porsche, so Weert gets up alongside. No, he doesn't quite. He doesn't get alongside. That'll be frustrating for the Belgian driver, because he would like to have cleared the Lamborghini coming into Adelaide.
Yeah, it's Patrick Kuchler up in front of him, the number 72 Lamborghini, but that hasn't made its pit stop for Barwell Motorsport, and Scholviertz will be hoping it just would move over, get out of the way, because Patrick Niederhauser closing onto his tail. But Dan Harper, surely this time, about to dive into the pits for Century Motorsport. No, one more lap. He thinks he can squeak it in. The lap's not long here. He's got 2 minutes and 8 seconds. Yes, he can do that.
This is his last lap before he has to bring the lead BMW in. There's Darren Lung getting himself all set, and I can imagine his heartbeat and pulse and whatever are up at the on the rev limiter of human beings.
You certainly think so. East Talent Racing came in Christopher Haase from second place. That means Dylan Pereira has moved up into second place in the number 66. Trazer attempts a racing Audi. He's driven beautifully in this race. His time will have to come. He will be diving into the pits when Dan Harper does at the end of this lap. But the lead battle for those that have pitted is very, very tight indeed. Scholviertz protects the inside line and saying, Christopher Niederhauser, if you're going to get past me in your Rutronic Porsche coming through the final corner, you've got to do it right here, right now. And he's jolly well having a look down into the inside.
Yeah, it's his brother Patrick who's driving, not Christopher Niederhauser. Anyway, he's gone through. He's gone through. What a great pass going into Grand Cab and now into Estoril, and that was a well-executed move. Began on the run down into Virage du Lycée, and now the Porsche, just simply because it's lapping quicker than Charles Weerts is doing in what was the 32 lead BMW. But again, look, catching, going through the curve at Gov. He's going to have a look down the inside. Niederhauser goes to the right to protect the inside entry, but watch for the switchback from Charles Weerts. Porsche will run slightly wider on the exit, the tighter exit for the BMW. But Niederhauser's just done enough to consolidate that advantage.
Right, what do you do now if you're Charles Weerts? How much do you try and unsettle Patrick Niederhauser through the next 2 corners? Had the Nürburgring chicane. And here is the race leader at the moment, but one who owes us a pit stop. He'll be diving in, and Dylan Pereira will come in as well to hand over to their respective teammates. Meanwhile, somewhere around the circuit, we have a new race leader. Patrick Niederhauser ahead of Charles Weerts, but where will this car come out? Has Dan Harper built enough of a lead for Darren Lung, who's taking over the Century Motorsport BMW, to get back out in front of them? He could have done.
It'll be dictated by the length of time the car has taken to enter, stop, wheels change, driver change. Currently, they are roughly, I would say, midway through. If they can get that car turned around with a stop in the 41, 42 second bracket, that will be, I think, something you'll be pretty happy with, but they've still got to do. Here is the race-leading Porsche, or effectively the race-leading Porsche, and it seems as if Patrick Niederhauser, there the BMW is rolling. So this is what has been the lead bronze car, but here are the 2 race leaders in effect. The Porsche leading the BMW, and Darren Lung comes down the pit lane at 50 kilometres per hour.
Yeah, now! Only now. I thought Dan Harper would have built a big enough advantage for him to be just ahead. One thing I'm going to put in the mix, do you remember that Patrick Niederhauser, when he took off in the Rutronic Porsche, cut across the nose of the 71 Ferrari as it came in? I've seen no further notification about that. It may be under consideration, I haven't noticed, but these small elements can totally tip a race on its head.
A little detail for those that follow the fortunes of Emile Frey racing Ferrari. Dan Harper just takes his helmet, puts it in the respective box. He's done a great job for his team. But the fastest race lap has actually gone to a Ferrari, and not the car that led the 14, but the 69, Thierry Vermeulen. He's done the fastest race lap, 0.2 of a second quicker than what was the previous best by Dennis Marshall in his Porsche.
So 1 minute 37.8, that's very close to the qualifying pace. No, it's not, it's the second off, I beg your pardon. It was 136.7, but it's good at this point in the race.
In race conditions, that's good. And that's on an opening lap, that's the flying lap. Fresh-ish rubber. I doubt it'll be brand new rubber, but certainly be quite fresh. But a good effort. Vermeulen is currently rounding out the top 10 in 10th.
Right, let's take a look. now we've had a real change. We're just waiting. This next lap around, everything will fall back into place because everybody would have served their pit stop. The window's been long slammed shut, but one car needing to make progress was the car that Lucas Auer started 11th, handing over to Maro Engel. Super strong pairing, and just didn't seem to have the form in the first half of the race, but we knew this is Lucas's first visit here. But Maro Engel, he knows the circuit with his eyes closed.
I mean, he's driven around here more times. Nevertheless, I mean, Lucas Auer we know is blisteringly quick, but it never came together. So there is Thierry Vermeulen in the quickest car on the racetrack right now.
And confirmation 0:03 on the windscreen. That has been a remarkable pit stop. The ultimate time for Lucas Auer to hand over to Maro Engel. They were 10th before the pit stop started. They're 3rd afterwards. They're 2nd in the championship. The car they're chasing is leading the championship. If they can get up ahead, catch Charles Weerts, there's a gap of 2.4 seconds, then perhaps they can still even take the lead in the championship here today.
I'm just looking. It was a poor pit stop for Century Motorsport. That was 55.8 seconds. Now, I don't understand why that pit stop.
Bronze class.
Bronze class, yes. Yeah. So they don't need to throw away a time. I was thinking maybe low 40s, 41, 42, maybe 43 seconds. But a 50, I mean, that's just difficult to understand. So we'll see how that plays out in that bronze category, because currently they're in 6th position, and their biggest challenger is the 66 Audi, Merkovits. But there's a car between them, Lorenzo Patrese in the gold Audi. So you've got Lung in the BMW in 6th, Patrese in the Audi 7th, and then Merkovits in the Audi in that same bronze category in 8th position.
Right, just to point something out, there is no time restriction in pit stops for the pro, gold or silver class.
But there is for
bronze. A minimum pit stop time in bronze. Therefore, that's why there was a level they could not jump out ahead of.
I got overexcited. I was hyperventilating. I'd forgotten about the bronze pit stop. Oh, now what's that all about?
Well, that was the car that Dylan Pereira had such a fantastic run. The number 66, that's Andrei Mukazov, who's was running in, what were we looking, 8th place. Well, that's now about 13th or 14th, just getting it wrong up towards Chateau.
And that was the car running 2nd in the bronze category.
Yeah, so that's going very nicely indeed for Darren Lung in that case. 6th place overall and his closest challenger for points. And they are sitting on a decent points lead, 11.5 points lead for Darren Lung and Dan Harper, and that's just going to be stretched a bit more.
We saw Simon Gachet currently in, I think he might have moved up to 9th, but it came across, he was showing 10th on timing and scoring. So Silver Cup leaders, so it's the Mad Panda, that's the car leading the silver category.
Yeah, and it's young Dutch racer Tom Callender, who's just settling in as though he's been doing this for years.
I think he's only 16.
That's young.
That's young. Well, by my standard, anything's young.
Right, let's look at the pace. We had that fantastic lap from the Ferrari with when it came out for Emil Frey Racing, and Thierry Vermeulen. That's helped him up to 4th place overall. They were nowhere. They weren't in the top 10 in the first part of the race, but they've worked their tactics, the timing of their pit stop perfectly, and Thierry, the Dutch racer, is really impressing.
Yeah, doing an excellent job. Slightly disappointingly, the 14, the car that led, the Ferrari that did lead, got Costa Lapalainen behind the wheel. It's gone from effectively the leader of the race down to 8th, but that was the consequence of the contact between the 991 BMW and the 14 Ferrari. As we are coming up to just going to go through the Imola S's and then cut down into Chateau d'Eau.
Yeah, well, in fact, don't forget that the number 14 pole-starting Ferrari fell with that contact down to 10th place. The fact it's got up to 8th in the hands of Costa Lapalainen is quicker than those ahead, means he will be gaining positions.
66 again, it's struggling. It went off here 1 lap ago. It was off on the outside of the exit of the Imola chicane. So the 66 is really, Merkovits is struggling. Inconsistency, it looks like, but maybe it's other factors we can't really comment on at this point.
Yeah, just looks like he's become a little bit rattled one moment, followed very shortly by another, if not a third. Now let's take a look. Well, the driver who has been fastest in the race, Thierry Vermeulen, also top of speed traps as well. So for Emil Frey Racing, they may recover something from this race. At the moment, he's running 4th for them, and the sister car is down in 8th.
Yeah, and Vermeulen just again in sector 3 on that last lap set up the fastest overall time of anybody in this race. So that Ferrari is certainly got pace. He's 11.6 seconds behind Maro Engel in the 3rd place. So the battle for the championship points in the pro category are really between 2nd place BMW Charles Weerts and 3rd place Mercedes Maro Engel. So it's a big ask for Vermeulen to knock back 11.5 seconds to get the final podium position. He might try. I know he'll drive his heart out, but it's going to be a big ask.
Well, Cream really does ride to the top. The car that's leads the championship. It started 6th, is in 2nd at the moment. That's Charles Weerts, having taken over from Dries van Tor. But Mauro Engel's car started 11th, and look how he's just taken chunk after chunk out of that gap. So the number 48 Mercedes, run by Winward Racing, getting closer and closer at the front of the field. But then that huge gap back to 4th place for Thierry Vermeulen. He's catching them, but he's a further 8 seconds in arrears.
Just catching a look of Darren Lung in his BMW, that car leading the bronze category comfortably from the 97 Porsche, and I beg about Dustin Blatter behind the wheel. So it's interesting that Mauro Engel is slowly reeling in, and Lapalainen likewise has just gotten ahead of Darren Lung. Well, that's a pro car overtaking a bronze car, but it brings Lorenzo Patrese into, well, tenths of seconds, running in 8th place in the gold category behind the 7th place BMW, which is leading the bronze category.
Yeah, it's a real mix of classes from 7th place down. The highest place non-pro car was 6th. That's down to 7th now. Constant Lapalainen has gained 2 positions in that number 14 Ferrari for Emil Frey Racing. It was 10th when it came in for the pit stops, having had that off-track moment with assistance at Chateau d'Eau for poleman Ben Green. Constant Lapalainen is moving up. But let's go down to the pit lane, and we will bring you an interview with the driver who was involved with that incident. His name is Dan Harper for Century Motorsport.
Dan, first of all, what an incredible performance you put on in that stint.
Thank you, yeah. Got a good start. My plan was to try get Ben on the first sort of lap or so, but he drove well at the beginning, and then I just sort of settled into a rhythm. I seen Dries, and I sort of knew Dries was going to be coming quickly behind, and obviously we're not fighting in the same class and fellow BMW, so I let Dries go and sort of fight the battle with Ben, and then I was just sort of hanging on to them and waiting for it to kick off. I knew it sort of would at some point, but I was just sort of waiting for it. And then when it did, yeah, I mean, I didn't know if the smart thing was to sort of get involved or try and hold back, but they were fighting so hard for a few corners that actually the guys behind caught up, so I couldn't afford to really take it easy. So whenever Dries went past, Ben was wide, and I sort of thought that was my chance to make a move as well. So I died up the inside. He squeezed me really tight, and there was a big sausage curb. So when I went up the sausage curb, because I had no space, then unfortunately we had a little coming together. So yeah, it's a shame for Ben, but we were all fighting hard, and yeah, I really enjoyed it, so it was good fun.
Oh, I'm about to really rain on your parade. You've just been given a 10-second penalty.
Okay.
Talk me through that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where they're coming from. He ended up in the gravel. In my opinion, it was a racing incident. Obviously, it was just a tough one, tough battling, heat in the moment with 3 cars battling hard. And yeah, in hindsight, I maybe could have been a bit smarter, but learn and go again next time.
Well, you showcased yourself brilliantly. Best of luck in the rest of the race. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's always tough when a driver has to get the news that he's got a penalty, but here is a replay of the move. Chateau d'Eau, he talked about the sausage curb, but he was clear over that and clattering into the side of Ben Green's Emil Frey Racing Ferrari. Darren Lung, who's taken over, is leading the bronze class, but if you add 10 seconds to his race time, as that will happen at the end of the race, that will, in current form, drop him down to about 19th position, and that will lose him class advantage in this race, but is still sitting pretty in the championship.
Yeah, the gap between first and second, fractions of seconds over the last 3 laps. So the reality is the gap as they came across start-finish line is now actually up to just over 2 seconds. But I mean, Dan was very eloquent in the way he talked us through it and, you know, explained it, and he thought it was a viable move. But one of the things you do have around Magny-Cours are some of these slightly more aggressive curbs, and those are the ones you can't launch yourself off, because once you've launched, you're out of control. And it was nice to have the Ferrari there as a cushion to keep you on the racetrack, but unfortunately the consequence was you get a 10-second penalty for what you did to the lead Ferrari, what was almost the lead for. Oh, now an Aston has rotated, and because that's in the middle of the circuit, I think.
It's car 11 and it's sideways at the edge of the circuit. Or James,
and that's a shame for James.
Well, and for his teammate Sebastian Ogier.
He's got it going.
Thank goodness he's got it going, because sitting there for a while with no lights on. Great work for the marshals there. Double wave yellows kept everyone clear, but he was actually just on the point of the track, but luckily there wasn't a gaggle of cars coming around. So still some possible penalties coming, and we talked a short while ago about Lorenzo Ferrari going well to lead the gold class. He's got a potential punishment for speeding in the pit lane, the one that makes, or as does another car, the 99. Alex Arca car he took over from Ricardo Fella. No punishment yet, but they're under investigation.
I think we just witnessed there the 14 Ferrari Lapalainen has just overtaken the 84 Audi Rector, so that's a positional change. So that brings the 14 up into 5th place overall. The both pro cars, so that was a battle for position overall, and a great recovery drive by Lapalainen in a car that was the race leader. Oh, what's happening here on the pit straight, number C20? I'm just wondering, is that a Ferrari? No, it's not. 29.
It's Miguel Ramos, which is it 188? Put into the side of the circuit. That's all it said.
It is. It's Garage 59. It is the 188, and that looks a steamy end, a disappointing end for that car.
Yeah, he took that over from Louis Pret, and unfortunately there'll be no points for either of those, no finish for either of those. So just want to point out, Consul Lapalainen, the car that was leading the race, was knocked out of the race in Ben Green's hand, is now up to 5th place. His next target, but it's 11 seconds up the track, is his own teammate.
Yes,
so he's not going to get that back for Emil Frey Racing, but to get back to 5th place is
a very strong
meritorious.
Drive. Yes, I mean the two Ferraris, the two Emil Frey Ferraris running 4th and 5th. The reality is we've just got just under 12 and a half minutes remaining, and the gap is 11.2 seconds between 4th and 3rd position.
There's another car travelling slowly on the run up to Adelaide. That's I'll pick it out when it gets up there. So we've also got quite a few drivers on final warning for exceeding track limits. Bronze class leader is now Darren Lung, but under a lot of pressure because that 10 seconds added to his time at the end will put him down actually only 2nd, maybe 3rd in class. He'd be very close to where Rob Collard is in the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini.
The 97 Rotonic Porsche will effectively take the lead by the 10-second penalty that will be levied on the 991 BMW. Darren Lung has done nothing wrong. He took over the car. But there we can see, there's the Tom Callender in 10th place in the silver Mercedes, taking lumps by the lap out of the 9th place. So that's going to be a positional change. There you're seeing it right now, Tom Callender, the 16-year-old driver. I keep having to pinch myself when I say it.
Eyes as sharp as pins as the light falls here, but certainly it's a question of when, not if, and Darren Lung's not going to make it too difficult because the last thing he wants is someone enthusiastic behind costing him championship points because he's had such a good run with Dan Harper. He's got that penalty to be added at the end of the race. This is the car that's chasing him. This is Dustin Plattner. Plattner in the, at the moment, 12th place overall. Rutonic Racing Porsche, but getting close to it. But he knows, as it stands, he is in the class lead.
Yes, I mean, I'm sure that Darren Lung has been given information from the pit lane and maybe being told, look, don't battle the 90 Mercedes. Callender is in the silver category, you're in a different category. Whoa, somebody runs wide coming off the grand curb. Luckily the car. So there is the live gap between Lung in 10th place and Blattner in 12th in the bronze category. So waiting 4.3 seconds. Now, is that going to be doable? It is. It doesn't really matter because the 10-second penalty that the 991 BMW is going to have to add to its finish time means that the car, Dustin Blattner, doesn't need. And his nearest challenger is down in 18th place, Rob Collard, in the 78 Barwell Lamborghini.
Well, a couple of incidents under investigation. Oh, let's have a look. Battle for first place in the Gold Cup class. It's still it's Lorenzo Ferrari, but Simon Gachet is getting closer and closer.
Yeah,
that's a car that you knew was going to come forward in this race. Yeah. It's such a strong pairing for the CSA crew. Lucas Legere, good job in the first part, but Simon Gachet, former winner here. Yeah, outright winner in a Silver Cup entry a handful of years ago, if I remember rightly. And he's looking mighty. 8th place could become 7th for him.
Yeah, very much so. I think that Lorenzo Ferrari is going to feel the heat from Simon Gachet in the 111 Audi. It was just over a second the previous time through there. You can see how much time Gachet, I mean, almost 3/4 of a second, just under half a second. So he's been taking, over the 3 laps, almost 2.5 seconds or so out of the advantage. And in fact, Callender has just suddenly leapt forward as Darren Lung has dropped back 2 positions because Tom Gamble and Callender have managed to get around the 991 BMW. Dennis Blattner, who's running 2nd in bronze, is down in 15th position. And he's going to win that category because we've only got 9 minutes remaining. And there's no way that Darren Lung can stretch that gap to regain the bronze class lead.
Okay, at the lead of the race, though, it's Patrick Niederhaus, the best part of 2 seconds clear of Charles Weerts. Has Charles settled for the points for 2nd overall because the championship challenging car started the race just 2 points behind him. That's got Maro Engel, is 1.5 seconds down off his tail, and Charles should be able to defend that. And actually, by doing so, 2nd place will give him more points than 3rd, so he'll stretch the advantage at the top of the championship to 5.5 points from 2. So all these things count. But here it is in the Pro class. It's Rutonic Racing leading, as I mentioned, their Porsche. There it is, and the gap, best part of 2 seconds back to Charles Weerts, Team WRT BMW, and 1.4 seconds further back, Maro Engel in the bright yellow and green Mercedes from Winwood Racing.
I just wonder, has Maro Engel got anything left in the tank to cut that 1.5 seconds down? Well, it's just coming across the line. It's actually extended up to 1.7 seconds. But in the meantime, Porsche, first time we've seen Porsche look like they're going to win an outright victory in recent times. And I mean, personally, great to see. But Patrick Niederhauser behind the wheel. Sven Muller did a very, very good job in his stint. Handed over to Niederhauser, and he fought and got around the 32 BMW. There are not many driver team manufacturer pairings can do that in a race here at Magny-Cours.
Yeah, and it really was down to a fantastic first lap and a half after they came out of the pits. He caught up with Charles Weerts and seized the moment the instant he could. But look at their results this year. No podium, top 3 podiums for them yet, and yet he and his teammate Sven Muller could take their first win here. They've had a 14th, an 8th, a 7th, a 5th, a 7th and a 14th. No sniff of a podium, but here, you said, right from the outset, John, the Porsches appear to be coming strong, and they're doing that.
Just another little heads up for another driver pairing combination. They've done an excellent job. Started at the back row of the grid. We never fully understood, maybe a penalty. The 99 Audi, Alex Arca. We saw Ricardo Feller start that car. That car has worked its way. It's been a long day's work for both the drivers, up to 12th position. And he's running just under a second behind Cesar Gazzo in the silver category, Mercedes Boutsen entry. So that's a potential overtake in the closing moments, but again in different categories. But there's the battle for second and third. Maro Engel comes across the start-finish line. The gap is now 1.4 seconds.
Seesawing a little bit, 3 seconds between the top and the bottom. Well, the wonderful graphic shows how the margins have closed up and then opened out again and then closed up. Maro Engel really starting to drift that Mercedes around. He's wringing its neck. The German racer, who's had so much success in the GT3 category, is giving his all. 3.2 seconds away from the race lead, trying to get close enough to challenge Charles Weerts. And race leader Patrick Niederhauser will be going, yeah, could you hurry up and do so? I want Weerts to be looking backwards, not forwards in the closing lap.
Darren Lung comes through. So this sort of funny name for a Virage de Lucé. And there is the second of the bronze entries, and that's the car that effectively is going to be, yes, Dustin Blattner is 18th overall, but he will effectively win with just over 5 minutes of this 1 hour race remaining.
But look at all the other margins, he should still come home with third place in the bronze class once that time penalty is applied, and you can see the effect of that. But for the others in the class, pressing on very, very hard indeed. So Lorenzo Ferrari, top car not in the Pro class. That's in Gold Cup, that's in 6th overall. Top in silver is Tom Callender in 9th. Going up overall, and the top in bronze is Darren Lung, 13th overall, but he's got that time penalty to be added after the end of the race.
And just to illustrate to the pace that Maro Engel is running at, he's just recorded fastest sector time in Sector 1 of anybody. So the gap when they came across the line to go on to the 33rd lap was 1.4 seconds, and one might assume if he can get that down to within a second, well, we've got 5 minutes exactly as the cars go on to, well, they've got 3 laps effectively to do.
Right. Traffic can often be an issue, and particularly with proper darkness. It fell here about 15 minutes ago, not long after the drivers who were doing the second part of the race got on board. It could still be a factor. We can see through the gloom there as some of the front runners are giving chase, but it's Patrick Niederhauser, best part of 2 seconds clear now, but the gap between second and third is coming down because Maro Engel just 1 second on the nose down behind Charles Weerts. Charles nearly 2 seconds down on the race leader, so if there's any place change, John, in the top 3 positions, it's going to be second and third.
There's Rob Collard in the Barbara entry. Now he's running 3rd overall, but he'll be elevated, I think, up into 2nd place in that bronze category.
Which will become the victory when the 10 seconds are added to the end of race time for Darren Lung. So it was worth chasing for SRO Motorsport. That was a car that qualified very well indeed. Started 7th on the grid after Sandy Mitchell did his part of the equation. And the bronze driver, Rob Collard, so many years of experience and such a determined driver, is pressing on for all he's worth. He's running very comfortably in 19th at the moment. He wants 18th because that will move him ahead of the car that would assume the Bronze Cup class victory. Not there yet, but getting closer.
1 second coming across the line on this lap. Maro Engel has taken almost 0.4 of a second out of the second place position BMW over the last couple of laps, and now not only is in his sights, he is going to be coming across the line. If he's under a second, then Maro Engel, 3.5 minutes to go, will clearly believe I might have a sniff of getting a second overall.
Right, we're riding on board with the Winwood Racing Mercedes driver, going down through the Grand Corps into Estoril. Absolutely flat chat there, but what he doesn't see up ahead is any back marker traffic. So if he's going to make a pass between now and the end of the race, 3 minutes remaining, he's got to do it off his own back. He may well do it. Of course, he's done it before. He may do it again, but traffic will not be an assistance to him.
Yeah, we've got a quick glimpse of the leading Aston Martin, Matteo Drudi, unfortunately running down in 17th position. That's the car that won Spa 24, just over a month and a half ago. So there's the bronze battle. We've got still the 991 leading, but de facto by the 10-second penalty added to their race time. It's the Porsche who are going to win, and it's going to be Barwell Motorsport will take second. It will be questionable as to whether Darren Lung and the 991 BMW will actually round out the top three.
Yeah, 3 cars will not make the finish of the race. The 188 McLaren, we saw that stopped at the side of the circuit. Stefan Denewal parked up in the number 44. Schumacher, CLRT, Porsche, and James Jakes, we saw him out at the side of the track for Come To You Racing, but everybody else still pounding around the track. Just over 2 minutes remaining. Race lead now. The last lap has been very good for Patrick Niederhauser. He's now just over 2 seconds clear from Charles Weerts, but Charles Weerts is getting busy, just 0.8 of a second clear of the chasing Maro Engel. Which way will second place fall? And that is being fought out between the 2 crews that are fighting out the Pro Championship.
But hold on, here we've got a great battle going on. We've got, just to change to now, this is the action for the race lead overall, but likewise Rob Collard had really closed up to the back of Dustin Blattner, 0.7 of a second on the previous lap, so that could be an even bigger day or evening for the Barwell Motorsport team in that bronze category.
It certainly could. Fought hard and qualifying well at Magny-Cours makes such a difference. Starting 7th, way ahead of a lot of their rivals, has really given them a helping hand there. Plus, of course, the penalty for Darren Lung.
So here is the battle for second place. So the gap when they came across the line was half a second, with give or take a hundredth or so of a second. But that's the view that now, how close can you get to the back of a BMW without tailgating it? Well, that's an indication Maro Engel had to pull a little bit more to the left to avoid maybe a contact with the back of the 32 BMW.
Well, good news for I mentioned earlier that the 88 and 99 Audis were under investigation for possible speeding in the pit lane, and the one that's leading the Gold Cup in 6th place overall, Lorenzo Ferrari, that car and the sister car 99, no further penalties, so running in 6th overall and 12th in the case of Alex Sarka. But this is where we want to be looking. This is the battle, looking back from second place. Charles Weerts, and Maro Engel almost on his boot.
And they're about to go on. There's 30 seconds of the race remaining, so they're up at the highest part of the circuit. And was that a move around them? I couldn't quite. We cut away, but to this drone shot, fireworks are already firing, so counting down 20 seconds. Where are the lead 2 cars? Are they coming into now? They're just, I think, going to get this across the line. 14, 13. No, they're not. I think it could be the final lap.
Well, we're looking at the bronze battle, and I've just got news in that 97, that's second in class, but to assume the lead, unless Rob Collard goes past Dustin Blattner's car, under investigation for unsafe release in the pit lane. Remember, that went right across the nose of the 71 Ferrari when it came in. So many twists and turns. And in this battle, you've suddenly got a Boots and VDS Mercedes getting in to enjoy the fun, but maybe break up the battle.
Well, there's been battles all the way through the field, and it's been a tough race. I mean, it's a 1 hour sprint race with a driver change, wheel tire change, and there's not much chance to catch your breath. So the Porsche has to go defensive coming down into the tight Virage du Lycée.
Well, that was Jules Gounon who started way down the order, took over from Maxi Goertz, who started in about 27th position, working their way up, but only just getting in the top 20.
Battle for second place on this final lap. And you can hear the bodywork, the splitter on the front scuffing against the curb now. Engel looks at, it's very difficult to see how we could find a way through, but still, nevertheless, he was having a look as we looked further through the field at all these battles.
That's the battle. Rob Collard has moved ahead of Dustin Blattner, and that will be taking the lead in the bronze class. It's not the lead on the track.
He's Rob Collard's run wide in Grand Cours, and he's lost he gained the lead in Estoril, but the Porsche just got a better entry. Rob Collard ran slightly wide and it's much dirtier on the outside of the circuit, so big washout from the front of the Lamborghini.
No one's told Rob Collard, and he can't take the risk of assuming that. But here we have the Rutronic, the other Rutronic Porsche coming down a 2-second advantage through the first part of the final corner, through the second part, onto the start-finish straight. First win of the year for Rutronic Racing with their Porsche. Sven Muller started it, Patrick Niederhauser finished it. They will be delighted with that. And I think Charles Weerts has hung on to second place just by 0.3 of a second from Maro Engel. What a great fight back. So the top cars in the championship finished second and third position for Charles Weerts and Dries van Tor. Second just extends their margin to a marginally more comfortable 5.5 points. It's been tight. It's been a real battle. Thierry Vermeulen, brilliant run for Emil Frey Racing, leading home. And now this is gold. This is fighting right the way to the finish. Lorenzo Ferrari, can he hang on in the Audi 88? Yes, just ahead of Simon Gachet. 6th and 7th position, but first and second in the gold class. As close as you like. The margin, 0.3 of a second on the end. Wow, we said Gachet would fight. He did.
It's been hold your breath all the way through. I mean, there's been battles not just at the front. We've seen a lot of those battles, but all the way through all the the four colour categories, battles all the way from the very front to the very tail.
Well, been absolutely fantastic battling. Still some cars racing around this final lap. We've got 1 hour complete, but the last runners chasing to the finish, and it was Darren Lung who was first to the line. And the Rob Collard had fallen back to third in class, but he may take victory because 97 crossed the line second in the bronze class. 991 was first, but we knew they had a 10-second penalty, but there is an investigation for an unsafe release for the car, the 97 Rutronic Porsche. So that may not be settled before they get to the podium, but we know the sister car from Rutronic, no wonder they're celebrating down there, because Sven Muller will be delighted in the pit lane and driving it home, NIE and 001. That's Patrick Niederhauser coming down. The Saturday night race here at Magny-Cours is theirs, their first podium of the season, and they're going to be standing on the top step. So great job for the Rutronic Porsche.
Superb job by Rutronic to get the Porsche to be, first of all, competitive in qualifying, and then eventually just they had more pace at the right time over all the other competitors. And once they got ahead of the 32 BMW, then really all Patrick Niederhauser had to do was just drive metronomically. It didn't need to have a 20-second advantage as long as he wasn't making any errors or wasn't getting caught or trapped behind slower cars that he might be lapping. And he brought the car home. Superb drive by Niederhauser and Sven Muller to take a victory.
And it wasn't just any old victory, it was the first overall victory for a Porsche in a sprint race in Fanatec GT Europe. That's quite something. You'd have thought they'd done one before, achieved one before, but here in the darkness, the fireworks fire into the sky at Magny-Cours. And I think that's the one's just being sent up from behind Rutronic Racing. They had plenty of celebration. So it's a cracking race. And of course, the talking point was Ben Green being elbowed out up at Chateau d'Eau by Dan Harper because Emil Frey Racing were looking very strong, and his teammate got them back from 10th to 5th. So
yeah, no,
some
superb
points in the bag.
Yeah, I mean, a great recovery drive by Lapalainen and to get that car, the car that had led for much of the first stint, back up into a top 6 position. But they will be saying, if and or but had that contact not happened up at Chateau d'Eau, would we have won the race overall? Nobody can answer that question, but they might feel that they were the team that should have, and the car that should have won.
Well, let's take a look. Sven Muller and Patrick Niederhauser, victory by 2.6 seconds at the end of the race. Dries van Tor came here as a championship leader, and second place shared with Charles Weerts keeps them out front. But what a charge from 11th from Lucas Aura and Maro Engel up to third place overall. Jacco Maltouet and Thierry Vermeulen, fourth for Emil Frey Racing, and Ben Green and Constable Lapalainen teammates in 5th. And then came the car that won the gold class by the smallest of margins. Lorenzo Petresi and Lorenzo Ferrari finishing it just ahead of Simon Gachet. Silver class victory to Ezekiel Perez-Companc and young Dutch racer Tom Callender. Benjamin Goethe and Tom Gamble pocketed some points for McLaren in 9th overall. Simon Riker for East Talent Racing bringing it home in 10th. But victory across the class. Gold class, as mentioned, it was the 88 Tracer Attempto Audi. But look, the celebrations begin down there. Patrick Niederhauser being given a workout by his pit crew because he's taken victory. All smiles, you can see even through the visor, open visor of his helmet. But delight down there. And Sven Muller had half the race to watch, to cross his fingers, to hope and pray. But it was the outlap from Patrick Niederhauser that really, really made the difference. It got him right on the tail of Charles Weerts. And the rest, as they say, John, is history.
Yes, I mean, it's a great effort by the teams, both in the pit lane and on the racetrack. And I mean, great from a personal perspective to have a Porsche back on the winner's podium. They haven't shown the performance, and I refer back again to Spa. We never knew what happened by that performance, which you've previously seen over many other years. They're a two young driver lineup, Patrese, Ferrari. Aren't they happy young lads? And a very fashionable way to wear your hat back to front. Well, Lorenzo Ferrari, he's a young man, he's fashionable, and he's probably thinks that's the way you should look.
Right, so as it stands, by the way, in the bronze class with the time penalties applied, Rob Collard takes victory in class because the time penalty was applied to Dustin Blattner's car, so that drops it to second, and despite being first on the road in the bronze class, the 10-second penalty added to Darren Lung's car puts him down into third position overall. So those penalties were applied. But the overall victory, Patrick Niederhauser and Sven Muller for Rudtronic Racing, they've worked hard for that. They couldn't put a wheel wrong. And John, they didn't. They gained a bit of fortune with the contact up front, but they were already right on the tail of those first three cars when it happened. They were in the right place to claim. But let's go down to hear our very, very happy winners. Let's hear from Sven Muller, who started, and Patrick Niederhauser brought it home.
Sven, Patrick, we've just had fireworks and they were all for you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. We are so happy. We had a tough season so far, and finally we got the win. We worked so hard for last months. Last race, we were pole position, unlucky in the race, and now finally good start and a nice maneuver from Patrick, who took us home the victory. So big thanks to the team. They worked so hard, and now we get finally the win. So really thankful for that.
Patrick, you had an incredible second stint, really held off the competition and brought home a first Sprint Cup win for Porsche.
Yeah, incredible. Like Sven said, for us, it was really a redemption ever since we had a difficult start into the season. Then the pole position, Nürburgring, and the accident in turn one, you know, like after all that, it feels just great. And yeah, had a good battle with Charles. I think he was a bit unlucky with the traffic, but yeah, nice fight. Really liked it, and super happy, obviously, with the first win.
What a brilliant moment and an incredible race. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really sense the satisfaction there. They had to go away and think about life, but the victory at the end was thoroughly reserved. Sven Muller, such a brilliant opening stint, but it was the way they got it right in the pits and the way that Patrick Niederhauser attacked. Whatever they've done to that car during the summer break, they've got right.
Well, in fairness, going back to Nürburgring, to the endurance race, that car was on pole position, but there was a usual story going into turn one at Nürburgring, and that effectively took the car out of the race. So you want to call it redemption, whichever, but they've got the victory here, overall victory, and there's clear delight.
Well, victory in the Silver Cup class went to Mad Panda Motorsport. Ezekiel Perez Companc is down there. But let's go down to our gold winners. It was car number 88. Let's hear from Patrese and Ferrari.
Our Gold Cup winners, congratulations, guys. When I spoke to you at the start of the race, we talked about the ups and downs you've had this season, but surely this is one of the best moments.
Yeah, for sure, it was a nice back-to-back since Hockenheim. So, I mean, we're happy. We started the weekend struggling a bit, but now, let's say, we kept it together and, you know, without mistakes, good pit stop, we could, you know, take home the victory. So happy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. As you said, it was a bit of ups and downs. Last sprint race 2 in Hockenheim, we won, as Lorenzo said. So it's nice to keep it going, and we will try to do the same for tomorrow.
No one deserves it more. Congratulations, guys.
Well, they made a step forward at Hockenheim. They came home 7th today. They were 6th overall, taking class victory.
A little bit of housekeeping. Somebody's told Lorenzo, put your cap on the right way around. The tire support company, they want to see their name. They don't want to see the hat, the back of the hat. Little bit of housekeeping.
Yeah, these things are fully required. There's their car. Victory in the class, in the Gold Cup class, in 6th position overall. But let's go down and join our silver winners from Mad Panda Motorsport. Ezekiel Perez Companc and young Dutch racer Tom Callender.
Ezekiel, when I spoke to you at the start of the race, you talked about how much it would mean to hear the Argentinian anthem, and now you will. Congratulations.
Yeah, to be honest, we are very happy. For me, it's the highlight of today was Tom. He did a mega job. His first sprint race in the championship. He's 16 years old and he's showing great potential for the future. It's crazy nowadays how the youngsters are coming so fast, and yeah, but it's the hard work and everything he's been doing, and yeah, he really deserves this one, so this one is for him.
Tom, not just your first sprint entry, but your first sprint win. What an incredible moment.
Yeah, of course, it was really good. We worked really hard for this. We did a lot of Pittsburgh practice, especially. The car was difficult to handle, but really fast, as you could see in the end. And yeah, I couldn't have been better. Really happy.
You nailed it from start to end. Congratulations. Go celebrate.
So delight there, and he really did push. And as John had to
emphasise Ezequiel Perez Compact, old enough to have a beard, but his teammate Tom Callender will have to wait a few years yet. Just 16 years old, and he absolutely delivered as he moved their car, the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes, up to 8th overall to win the Silver Cup class. Bronze Cup class, it wasn't the order that they crossed the line that was the order that they were going to be allocated the points, because there was a 5-second penalty for an unsafe release in the pits for the Rutronic 97 Porsche. That put Dustin Blattner down to second in class. First on the road was Darren Lung, but there was a 10-second penalty for his car. That's the 991 Century Motorsport BMW. And that meant victory went to Rob Collard, who actually made a little slip-up, but for Barwell Motorsport, the Lamborghini takes the class victory. So he'll be delighted that. So will the team chief, and so will teammate Sandy Mitchell. So really good job. And if you're wondering why the podium is behind the pits, behind the giant pit building at Magny-Cours, it's just sort of how it fits. Let's take a look back to the start of the race. Ben Green on pole position in the Emil Fry Racing Ferrari, being challenged around the outside, but for Century Motorsport, Dan Harper tucked back into second place. The real gain at the start was sixth up to third. And it's not quite there yet. He's in fourth at the moment. That was Dries van Thorp. This is the moment he went past Sven Muller to take third place. It was very, very tight up at the hairpin, up at the Adelaide hairpin, but it was neat, it was tidy. Downhill they went. So that was a great start, really important start for Dries van Thorp. And then there was a moment where Dan Harper sort of let him through, because Dan's running in the bronze class. Fellow BMW driver Dries van Thorp challenging in the pro class. He let him by. Those first three cars started to get away. The racing was thick and fast down through the field, and that was thick rather than fast going into the final corner there. Two cars going for a spin. Penalties were to be issued. Up front though, Dries van Thorp took the lead in a really robust series of corners with Ben Green, and about 3 corners later Dan Harper fancied to go as well, and unfortunately he would pick up a 10-second penalty for that. But for Ben Green it was a second place suddenly became 10th. But then we had the battle, the amazing move there after the pit stops, and Charles Wirtz tried to defend the lead, but there was no second bidding for Patrick Niederhauser. Put his Rutronic Porsche into the lead of the race. They put up the fireworks for that, and they do it all over again at the end of the race, because eventually 2.6 seconds clear. Swiss racer charging to the checkered flag. Job done. The first Porsche sprint win. That's quite extraordinary, but very, very well earned. Very close between second place Charles Wirtz and Maro Engel. That was the top 3. And the celebrations at Rutronic Racing, you can understand it. The pressure was rising. It was bottled up. And there's the moment. Patrick Niederhauser being assaulted at the back of the pit lane, because that was a really, really good run to victory, John.
Yes, indeed. And I mean, this series is so competitive that it's impossible really to predict which manufacturer, which brand will come out on top prior to the cars going on track. But here this weekend, certainly this evening, Porsche have done what they need to do. Now they'll all go back. Cars will be in Parc Fermé, they'll be released back to the teams. We're back here again for 9:15 in the morning for qualifying for race 2. Totally different set of circumstances. Who will be in pole position? Well, you can think of all the obvious sort of suspects. And there's one of them, the 48 Mercedes team, Lucas Auer, Maro Engel. Maro Engel will do the qualifying tomorrow morning for that team. So who's going to be in the front row of the grid? Who'll be where in the grid? You'll have to join us.
You most certainly will. That was a really, really strong second part of the race. And the taller figure there, Maro Engel, but they came here second on points. They've slipped very slightly here, but they'll start tomorrow's race just 5.5 points down in the pro class. But 11th through to 3rd, that was a good evening of work as day turned to night here at Magny-Cours. Second place to our championship leaders, now 5.5 points clear. Charles Wirtz and Dries van Thorp up onto the podium in second place, but truly deserving of the first Porsche Sprint Cup win in Fanatec GT Europe. You can hear the applause down there from the Rutronic Racing team, and there's the the award for the Silver Cup winners, Mad Panda Motorsport. But on the top step will come Sven Muller and Patrick Niederhauser. Job well done, and the joy absolutely unbridled for them as they get up onto the top step of the podium. Now the national anthem of the winning team.
Allez, on va pouvoir
So great smiles there from Patrick Niederhauser and Sven Muller on the top step of the podium. Victory in the first of the two Fanatec GT races here at Magny-Cours. The second race will be early afternoon tomorrow, and we look out to it. Conditions will be different, but right now, this evening, it belongs to Rutronic Racing, Porsche, Niederhauser and Sven Muller. Will they do it tomorrow? So that's the Pro Racing podium, beautifully colour-coded, red, blue and yellow, but it was blue that came through tonight. Blue with the yellow flutes around the side, bright in the daylight, shining in the night. Rutronic Racing taking victory. And there are not just their first trophies of the season, John, but winners' trophies. That is a real step up.
I mean, it's been a work in progress for the Rutronic team, amongst other Porsche entrants, to get their product, their brand, to the position where they can win on merit. And this was a victory, clearly won on merit, because they ended up being the quickest combination overall in this 1 hour sprint race.
Yeah, they got the sums right, but you have to say for the crew closest to us with the man filter overalls, to recover from 11th to 3rd, that was strong. They're not out of it. Mercedes don't seem to have been in the hunt thus far, but the pace that we saw, particularly from Maro Engel, shows they're going the right way.
Yeah, clearly the pace, certainly from Maro Engel, was very impressive. Again, good pit work, in and out, get that pit stop done, minimum amount of time lost. That's where you can overtake in those pit stops, make up 3, 4, 5 positions. So much more difficult to do it on the racetrack.
Oh, absolutely so. And we saw a few incidents in that race, and it was also about keeping your noses clean. But Charles Viers and Dries van Soort came here with a small lead. It is rather large now, 4.5 points rather than 5.5. Lucas Auer and Maro Engel keeping them very honest indeed. But the crew in 3rd place, well, they deserve more. Ben Green and Constant Apolainen taken out of a front-running position, still came home in 5th, so they're still 3rd in the championship, way clear of Jacco Altsme and Thierry Vermeulen, their Emil Frey Racing Ferrari teammates. But really, this battle is boiling down in the pro class to Charles Viers and Dries van Soort against Lucas Auer and Maro Engel. Who knows how they'll qualify on the grid tomorrow, but the way both those crews work their way up through the order shows on merit they are fantastic. So let's go down to the next podium of the batch. So many cars, the class winners all piled in behind into position down among the throng of teammates, mechanics, team owners, sponsors down there, waiting for them to come up. This will be the gold podium. And there was a change of position on the final lap for 3rd position in class. I'll reveal that very shortly indeed. In fact, there they step up to spoil the surprise. Liqui Moly, Team Engstler, Luca Engstler, who started, Max Hofer, who had a really good finish right at the end. He just moved ahead of the number 25 Santalot Racing Audi. 2nd place in class, it was an Audi, CSA Racing, driven very, very well indeed. Car number 111, started by Lucas Legeret and Simon Gachet, charging through to the finish. But the top step will go to a crew. We've already had an interview with them. Car number 88, Trezor Attempter Racing, Lorenzo Patrese and Lorenzo Ferrari will be coming up to the top step. But that was a team award for Trezor Attempter Racing as well. But the winning drivers, both called Lorenzo, Patrese first, Ferrari second, up onto the top step of the podium. They have worked hard. That's 2 class wins in the gold class in succession for the young Italian pair.
Bit of an Audi lockout. Top 3 places taken by Audi teams.
In fact, even with the change for 3rd place, it would have been a top 3 for Audi. So as the Italian national anthem rings out for Trezor Attempter Racing, top 4 positions in the Gold Cup class, all for crews driving Audis. The best of the rest was actually some distance further back. It was Matisse Lismont, car number 21, shared with David Pittard, Come To You Racing Aston Martin. But it was all about Audi in the gold class. But it was all a question of who would come out on the top step. And by the smallest of margin, just 0.3 of a second. That was how much Lorenzo Ferrari just remained in front of the chasing Simon Gachet. So great from the start through to the finish in the gold class. Not just the drivers getting the awards, but their team as well. So great run for Trezer Attempto Racing. Bear in mind their normal leading car number 99, started 32nd and last. That actually worked its way up to 12th, so that was one of the stories of the race as well, John.
Yes, very much so. And I think that car, had it been at the front of the grid as we would have, or certainly in the opening 2 or 3 rows, would have been a contender. Overall, look, Audi's not operating as they would have done over previous years, but Trezer and other Santa Lock are still teams that can offer a strong challenge in any of the categories, whether it's pro, silver, gold or bronze. And there you're seeing in the gold category, they've just got a wipeout.
Yeah, they certainly have cleaned up, and we've still got the bronze celebrations to come. But tonight, just if you missed us for a moment, it was Patrick Niederhauser and Sven Muller taking outright victory. This is the podium for the Gold Cup class, and Lorenzo Petresi getting a soaking from his pit crew there. And the young drivers, they did a great job.
Of course, all the teams that are on the podium have got to come back here first thing in the morning, so they will leave as you go through the classification.
Well, Luca Engster and Max Hofer came home third in class, and that means they're still in the lead of the championship. Paul Ebrard and Gilles Magnus not too far behind, but Simon Gash and Lucas Legere, had they been able to take the lead in the race right at the end, they'd have been in second place. It's very tight indeed. For Lorenzo Petresi and Ferrari, tonight's winner, they're down in 5th place overall, but all they can do is keep on chipping away. They don't, I think, mathematically have a chance in the 3 remaining races, 1 here and 2 at Barcelona, to take the title, but all they can do is keep on picking up the class wins. That's 2 in the row for Trezer Attempto Racing in the Gold Cup class. Now, of course, in the bronze class, it wasn't the order they crossed the line at the end of the race. We're going to see them coming up in the podium because the car that finished first in class, the Century Motorsport BMW, had a 10-second penalty added to its time at the end. And the car that finished second, the second of the Rutronic Racing Porsches, had a 5-second penalty, which means neither of them won. But here we are in the Silver Cup class. Callan Williams and Sam DeHaan came here with the championship lead. They didn't have to push too hard. They managed to come home 5th in class, and that continues to leave them in the lead. And Cesar Gazzo and Aurelian Panis will have to win everything between now and the end of the season to topple them. So it was, we heard from Callan Williams before the racing saying, I just got to be consistent, get it to the finish. So the bronze class podium in 3rd place overall. Sorry, just waiting to have confirmation. Just waiting for everybody to get up onto the podium there. And it's the silver class because 2nd place on the podium is Cesar Gazzo, car number 10. Boots and VDS sharing with Aurelian Panis, and it's the silver podium. So it's Mad Panda Motorsport coming up here. Ezekiel Perez Companc, Tom Callender, and 3rd place overall is car number 26 in the Silver Cup class. That's the Santa Lot Racing crew of Marcus Pavarud and Ivan Klimenko. So Ezekiel Perez Companc wanted the Argentinian national anthem, and he got it.
Yes, and a very emotional moment for Ezekiel there. We haven't heard the Argentinian national anthem for a considerable time, and you could see how much it means to him. And that little moment, a private moment, very publicly shared with us all watching on television. So that's a great evening for Mad Panda Motorsport. And they're going to do it all over again tomorrow.
Absolutely they do, and at least it meant the crew that finished 2nd in the Silver Cup class closed the gap to the class leaders, but as pointed out, Sam DeHaan and Callan Williams came here with a 29.5-point advantage. It's been chipped away at a little bit, but consistency I think will be key for them overall. But Cesar Gazzo and Aurelian Panis on home ground, 11th place for them overall, 2nd in the Silver Cup class. That will at least give them a smile, will give them a boost, and we start again tomorrow morning early with the qualifying for the 2nd of the 2 races here at Magny-Cours. That will be held in the mid-afternoon.
Let's take a picture together, guys.
So as they work their way, darkness has long fallen here, half the race in darkness, but the ceremony will continue into the night. But for all these drivers, they've got their trophies, they've got their Pirelli awards, and this is the Silver Cup class. They're about to stand down, but first they have champagne to spray, and good to see so many people milling around and enjoying the celebrations on the podium.
Yes, champagne to spray, but I suspect not to savour, because you know, when you've been in a race car and you jump out of it, the adrenaline is still coursing like a race car through your veins, and any sip of alcohol just goes straight into your system.
So the bronze ceremony about to come up, but of course, as mentioned a short while ago, the top three were reverse. This is why the car that won it got a 10-second penalty. That was Dan Harper taking out Ben Green's Emil Fry Racing Lamborghini. And the car that eventually we thought had taken it, unsafe release. Here it goes, straight across the bow of the number 78 class rival there. That was the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. 5 seconds added to their time meant it was the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini that will be heading towards the top step of the podium. So all got reversed in the final few minutes. But Dan Harper and Darren Lung, even with the penalty, still lead the championship. But that class victory has moved Rob Collard and Sandy Mitchell for Barwell Motorsport closer. They're now in second place. Jonathan Quee and Eddie Cheever didn't see too much of Sky Tempesta Racing, are back in third, still in the title hunt. Likewise, Dimitri Gazava and Ugo de Vilda, who's looking very impressive. They're fourth in their Imperial Lamborghini. But Dan Harper and Darren Lung, they knew they needed to be cautious. They were, but just one little moment in the race where Dan Harper got a little less cautious, and we had the clash up at Chateau d'Eau.
Yeah, he took a punt, and literally he punted the Ferrari, the 14 Ferrari, off the racetrack, and as a consequence of that, he called it, Dan called it a racing incident. Racing drivers sometimes interpret incidents slightly differently to how stewards do, and they don't always see eye to eye, but it's the steward's decision that counts.
Absolutely so, and so therefore coming up onto the top step to take class victory, Rob Collard and his teammate Sandy Mitchell for Barwell Motorsport. So it's a Lamborghini victory, and Rob has been racing for a long time, but he still has as much thrill at getting on the top step as ever before. And so that is why they're on the top step. Penalties for the cars that finished first and second, but they came out on top.
God save the Queen pour les vainqueurs de cette bronze cup.
So the British national anthem fades away. Rob Collard giving a wink to Sandy Mitchell. You did a great job in qualifying seventh, and I managed to bring it through to the end. But it was really tight in the Bronze Cup class. Darren Lung toppled down the order a little bit, but the 10-second penalty was what denied he and Dan Harper class victory. They'll be back to fight again tomorrow, as will their class rivals. And again, with Fanatec GT, having the class structure gives many trophies to fight for, and every single one of the drivers up there still in the championship hunt. That's how we like it. Final shuffling of cars as the teams are rather keen to get them away from the podium, John, back to their team trucks and garages and leave them overnight. They'll be in very early tomorrow morning. And of course, it's going to be a case of what's the track temperature going to be like. We had a little flurry of rain fleetingly this afternoon. I think tomorrow is going to be cooler, but
yes,
set fair.
I mean, today was going to be the warmest of the 3 days here at Magny-Cours. Tomorrow it'll probably be about 10 Celsius cooler. So that means track temperatures at 9:15 in the morning will be lower, considerably lower than they even were as this race came to its conclusion. Ambient likewise. So again, it's the same for everybody. You've got to go out and use those situations to your best advantage.
Well, that's the final podium ceremony on a Saturday evening here at Magny-Cours. The day-to-night race is complete. We've got plenty to talk about, but this evening belongs to Porsche, with Sven Muller, Rutronic Racing, and Patrick Niederhauser taking victory here on a Saturday night. It's goodbye from me, Bruce Jones, and goodbye from John Watson. Good night.